Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV. It is qualifying day for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 for 2023. This is one of my favourite parts of the sim racing year down here in Australia and New Zealand. And oh my goodness, we are going to be seeing some fantastic laps out there as some of the regions and some internationals' best sim racers manage to attack Mount Panorama Circuit in country New South Wales. Always special to see this track being maximised to the ultimate level. And to bring it to you all live here on YouTube, Facebook and Kick is myself, Reese Gardner. Jay Kennedy is on the production duties behind the scenes and could be joining me for a few moments before Dan Yeaman joins us in the commentary box. Well, Jay, I reckon this is going to be a fun night of racing. We've already seen some awesome racing in the supports this weekend so far. Now it's all about drivers versus the track.
Yeah, hello everyone. And yeah, looking forward to this. And as you say, it's one of the best, I think it's one of the best nights that we have in the whole year, regardless of what series we're running. A shootout night, qualifying night for V8SCOPS is always special. It's always entertaining. Always provides a really big curveball. Something happens that we don't expect to happen. We see drivers that make it into that top 15 shootout that we wouldn't have expected. We see drivers make the front end of the field that we don't expect. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. The drivers have just started qualifying for Group 3, so we'll get some pictures through in a moment.
Yes, indeed we will. Of course, that is pertinent that you mentioned that, Jay. There is an open qualifying session here to start things off. All of the drivers going out on track in their 3 separate groups in reverse pre-qualifying order. And then afterwards, the top 15 teams from this session will go through to the shootout where we determine the starting order of the top 15 for the Bathurst 1000. And each car gets 1 lap on their lonesome to try and prove themselves. At the moment, of course, we do have Group 3 out at the moment. Chad Lewis in 5th place at the moment for Evolution Racing Team in the number 727. And that's the kinds of times we're going to be looking at so far. Low 203s here in the first group, but we should be expecting drivers at the top of the league to be running times in the low 202s, sorry, maybe even breaking into the high 201s.
Yeah, 100%. We should see those very, very quick times coming in. Of course, conditions will be a little bit dependent on that as well, but these drivers will get 20 minutes in their groups, split into 3 equal-ish groups. But for me, I think this is much better system than what we've run in the past, where everyone has been out on track at the same time. It has caused chaos, carnage, mayhem, every single superlative you can think of. So I think the race on the weekend, this will sort of organise the field in a little bit more organised fashion.
Yeah, of course. It should point out the conditions as well. It's looking like pretty cool air temperature out there, only 20 degrees Celsius with a 29-degree track temperature. That's looking reasonably warm out there. Should provide some good grip in the tyres, as we are joined by Dan Yeaman. Jay's going to get back into the producer's chair. Dan, qualifying time for V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. We always look forward to this day, but of course, we have to point out that there are 3 sessions taking place in this 1 hour and 10 minute session. First session, 20 minutes, then there's a 5-minute break, then 20 minutes for Group 2, and then another 5-minute break and 20 minutes for Group 1. We've got a lot of laps to put on the board here.
We sure do indeed. Thank you for covering for me there, just sneaking in the door this evening, having spent some time out and about with a bit of music this afternoon, but back and ready to roll for qualifying, and indeed not missing out on too much, thankfully, it seems, as the drivers start putting their times on the board here in the first of our 3 qualifying groups there. Focusing here on Timothy Vaughan in one of our Vermilion Motorsports entries, number 026 to be precise. You'll see here as he comes up towards the chase on a lap at this stage, and looking to put one on the board to join the 9 cars that have a time so far in the session at this point.
Yes, there's going to be more, obviously. Plenty of drivers taking part in pre-qualifying for this, and it's a 50-car grid for tomorrow's race. Positions 36 to 50 in pre-qualifying going to be out on the track at the moment. That is going to result in 14 cars total completing lap times in this first part of the session. How does Justin McLean go in the 662 machine? This is going to be interesting because there's a lot of unknowns. Obviously, we have our series regulars competing. We often have drivers who just take part in the Enduros as well. So there are some interesting matchups out there.
Yeah, indeed. It is sort of this chance to see a wider range of drivers. But yeah, we're talking 50 cars, 100 drivers who will take part in just the race qualifying. Well, in the race tomorrow, I should say, because in qualifying, most teams will probably have one driver they're primarily looking to get qualifying, get the best qualifying time on the board. In most cases, that is. I mean, there are obviously certainly times where there'll be teams that have both drivers potentially on pace and can be relied upon for a qualifying lap here.
The Black Hawk Motorsport car makes its way across the top of the rise on Conrod Straight and down into the chase. Fearsome corner, this one. Fearsome chicane, I should say, considering all 3 of the turns involved. Fastest corner entry in the Australian motorsport scene there. Looks to me like David Kirby potentially suffering some, Justin McLean suffering some technical issues, as it seems he has abandoned that lap for the time being. So there won't be a time on the board for the 662 just yet. Coming into the same location is Zach Vlasblom in car number 57, and the Alpha Venturi Racing team has decided to bring out a tribute livery for this round, looking very nice indeed.
Yeah, I believe. We'll just see. Unfortunately, invalidate the lap there. Does Vlasblom the exit of the chase, and straight back to pit lane as a result. So try again another time. There is looking here at Chad Lewis, the Evolution Racing team entries here for the weekend. He comes down into the elbow and looks to be just about on a lap here as well, Reese. We'll see how these numbers add up towards the line. Currently P5 in the session. 6.5 tenths behind our provisional pole time held by the Altus Australia car. So 2:03.974, the exact number that Chad Lewis is currently sitting on. We'll see here how his lap wraps up here in a moment.
Yeah, so currently the best time with that car is a 2:03.9. Let's see if this lap is any improvement on it. Down into Murray's Corner, just clips the curb and rides it out on the exit. It's a 2:04.0, just missing out on improving that time. So Chad's going to have to bring that one back in and go out for one more run here. At the very least, could potentially put 2 laps in if he gets it timed right. Justin McLean still looking for that initial lap time as he comes out through the dipper.
Yep, down the hill he'll go for a bit as we see one of our sim racing cars there for a moment on pit lane, the 707, although waiting, I believe, their turn at this stage. In qualifying is Andre Youssef behind the wheel of the Altus Australia. Number 5 will bring that car back down to the lane. So reset and go again. Another time here soon.
He just set that car's fastest lap too, 2:03.65. Nice job there from Andre Youssef indeed.
Oh, that'll be important to see if he can improve on that mark. It's still 3 tenths off of sister car number 24, which at this stage, he has been looking good, doing all the laps in that car so far. But focusing on Rowan Davis next here in the 077. Banter Alliance Racing entry here as they come through the Great Reese and looking to improve on a 2:05.3 at this stage. We'll need quite some improvement to be able to move forward, given that they are a bit of a ways off the next car ahead there in JTIT Race on Oz entry in 7th at this stage. But see here looking all right for now, although maybe little numbers don't quite look like they're quite on pace as what we saw, especially with Chad Lewis earlier. When he came down through, he was already about 1:25 or so exiting the elbow. That there, about 1:30 or thereabouts, not going to cut it as the Vermilion Motorsports 026 entry makes its way into provisional P4 there.
Yeah, nice job there from Timothy Vaughan at the wheel of that Mustang. We'll see if there's any improvement in the last few minutes of this first session of qualifying, and then these guys will go into the pits, cool off, and the rest of the drivers will go out in their own groups. Davis evidently not too happy with that lap. He's going to bring it in and have one more attempt himself. Here's Justin McLean again. And so far, he's failed to get a representative time on the board for the 662 car. Let's see what he can do here as he nails the line through the middle of Forest Elbow and just avoids getting into the wall on the exit. Something the drivers have to think about in any iRacing qualifying session is the contact 0x and the off-track 1x incident points. Off-tracks will certainly be grabbable in this part of the circuit if you run too far onto the grass, but concrete walls all across the top of the mountain, it's going to be easy to smack one of those walls and invalidate your lap, even if it's just a slight tap. Looks like McLean is finally committing to the end of a lap here. Let's see what the 662 has in store for it. The Black Hawk Motorsports car across the line, and it's going to be a 2:03.79, and that will put them straight up into P5. Lovely stuff. 10 cars setting times so far.
Yep. Make it 11 as the Fishy Motorsports 666. Well, they're still circulating. Oh, they're circulating. I should actually double check that before I finish that sentence. No, they're not out there at the moment and have a time that's not representative of pace as Timothy Vaughan will peel in here and might have just enough time there to do one final setup lap. Eyes on Zach Vlasbom once again in that Alpha Venturi 57 and this Valvoline inspired. Oh, and again, too fast on the exit of the chase and finds the grass to invalidate that lap.
And he didn't go for the pits either, so he's going to commit to the next lap here. That car desperately trying to improve on what's currently P2. Looks like that time did count there for Vlasper. I'm not too sure if my timing screen is playing tricks on me, but it was still slower by 0.2 than that car's fastest lap. Tim Mulford, meanwhile, in the Phoenix Racing Team entry in the number 85. We'll see what he can do. There's a couple of Phoenix cars out there today. We're going to be seeing, I believe, Rehan Leonage taking the number 79 around in the qualifying session. They'll be hoping for an appearance in the top 15 shootout. And Rehan Leonage, with the skill that he has shown in the last year or two, certainly capable of that. But we'll keep an eye on Mulford for the time being. Nice and smooth on the brakes down into Forest Elbow. Doesn't quite hook up the apex, but the exit is what's important. All about getting it as straight as possible, getting on the power as quickly as you can for the best rundown Conrod.
Yep, that does. Well, that definitely is what matters here, as we'll watch this now into the chase. The Banter Alliance Racing entry able to step well clear there and back right off as bring the car down in. That looks steady, although understeering a bit there at the apex. Gets it pulled up and then going to flirt with the track limits there and comes into the lane, abandoning that final chance at a lap there, Reese. So the 85 is done and will be towards the back of the field in that case. But we'll see how things go for them tomorrow with that one there. Next up on the cards looks going to be the JTIT Race on Oz 042. Ben Faulkner behind the wheel as they bring this car down into the chase for their final lap here in qualifying Group 1.
Race on Oz has been a part of V8SCOPS for many years now, and their drivers are certainly veterans of this series, veterans around this track as well. I don't even want to count the amount of laps completed by various drivers throughout this field as Faulkner comes across the line and unfortunately doesn't improve on his quickest time so far. They will remain in provisional 9th for the time being. Here's an onboard of what happened for Faulkner at the exit of the chase. Just lost a little bit of traction over the exit as you straighten it out. And I think that is what ultimately cost him that lap time. As we check out the Altus Australia cars, looks like the session is now over, but anyone who is currently on a lap will be able to finish it. That's what the 5-minute window between the individual sessions is for. So can Andre Youssef improve on P3 at the moment?
Unfortunately, a car that's not going to improve is the Vermilion Motorsports entry. I think I just saw Timothy Vaughan has got that car nosed into the wall on the exit of turn 2. So they're stuck, and drivers will have to make sure they go around him. And actually, well, stuck no more. 026 gets back out and going. As we'll just continue to watch our last couple of cars here. Youssef looking to be sitting provisional P3. That looks neat and tidy enough here. See if he's got enough to improve. A little loose on the exit of the chase. Still pointing in the right direction, though, as he brings it up to Murray's for his last time.
All right, Youssef out of the final corner, 203.65 to beat. And, again, he just misses out. It's a 203.76, 1/10 off. And there will be no more attempts from Warren Davis in the 007 Banter Alliance machine. Craig Schultz now coming towards the end of a lap here. Of course, another retro-ish livery that we are seeing here, and that's going to make its way into the lane as well. Mulford coming to the end of a lap here, and it looks like he's going to peel into the pits as well. Doesn't look like anyone's going to be committing to the end of a lap here at the dying stages of the first of our 3 individual qualifying sessions in this server. So apart from that, I don't really see anyone out on track on a hot lap, so that means we can run through our provisional results. 11 cars of the 14 eligible setting lap times for Group 1 of open qualifying for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000, and it was Ruben Goodall in the Altus Australia number 24 who set the fastest time. 203.33 is the time to beat.
Indeed it was, and in behind him, The Alpha Venturi car splitting the two Altus Australia cars in this first group. 203.53 and 203.65 to round out your top three at this stage. And then just behind the Altus Australia number 5, Vermilion Motorsports, the 026 car is only about 300ths off with a 203.68 in this session. Blackhawk Motorsport going to round out our top 5. Then WMB Sim Sports, Evolution Racing Team, Phoenix Racing Team, the JTIT Race on Oz, Banter Alliance Racing, and Fishy Motorsport, although that car with a time that is definitely not what they could have put in, will most definitely be starting last, barring someone unable to set a time at all in this session. In fact, since saying that, there are a couple of cars that won't be able to make qualifying today, which means that they will have to start their races from the back of the grid tomorrow.
Yeah, that they will. All right, looks like we're about to get ready to go for the green flag in Group 2, as well as we check out the circuit these drivers are racing around today. Mount Panorama Circuit. If you're an Australian motorsport fan, this place needs no introduction for you, really. It's the premier circuit in Australia. I mean, we do have Grade 1 circuits like Albert Park that host Formula 1 every year, but this is the site of Australia's great race every single year, and they race around here for 161 laps. This layout has existed since 1987 when the chase was put in. Conrod Straight, initially a straight run all the way from Forest Elbow to Murray's Corner. They had to put the chase in because the 1987 Bathurst 1000 was a round of the World Touring Car Championship, and the FIA said, hey, that straight you've got there, it's a little too long.
Yeah, and in one of this, whilst I unfortunately too young to have ever seen racing on that original layout, or more or less original layout that was here at the mountain. In many respects, certainly the chase has been, is an iconic location, very much in the current day and age, all the same. And so, yeah, well, I would probably say it's a valuable contribution to the track in terms of the way it adds something to the end of the lap as well. You now have 2 overtaking opportunities, I would suggest, there at the end of the lap rather than just the one, as the green flag is given for our second group of cars to head on out. And so they begin here. So we're looking at another 20 minutes and pardon me, actually I could see it exactly who we're dealing with in this group. That would be great. 35th through 21st in pre-qualifying. That's who is going to be out here on the circuit next.
Yes, indeed. One more car than was in the first, was eligible, for the first qualifying session. And it looks to me like the final session will be the top 20 cars from the few days of pre-qualifying that we had throughout the week just to get into this race. So, David Kirby, part of the Fishy Motorsports crew, Vincent Skilbeck, part of the Wheelie Bins Mayhem Republic team, Ian Ford, one of the long-time competitors in this series. He's driven for Evolution Racing Team pretty much the whole time he's been involved with SCOPS. And of course, Ruchy's Dock Shop is out on track as well. Richie Stanaway at the wheel of that one. And one of a couple of real-life drivers in the Real Australian Touring Car Series taking part here tonight. Ben Christensen also involved in this particular session. It looks like Ben Morris is going to be one of the cars leading the charge here at the very front of this queue. The Phase 4 Motorsport crew will be looking for some good laps here today. Morris, crucially, out on track there with good gaps to the cars behind, and it looks like formation flying from Team Jinx Shifters here. Brett Loxton leading the charge at the moment, and he is followed very closely by Chris Coxhead in the 203. Chris Coxhead, one of the drivers that has taken part in every single V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000, I believe. So a lot of history with this team. Yeah,
there is drivers who have been doing this now for an incredibly long time, that's for sure. Far longer than I have been around, and as a result, they keep showing up when the time comes here for these endurance races. I'm also told in the background that this is also technically an anniversary race, as it were, 10th running of the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 here in 2023 as well to boot.
Yeah, it's been a long history of this race. The first V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000, I believe, taking place in 2014. That was quite some time ago. Definitely a way to make us all feel old and like we need walking frames. But we're following Chris Coxhead around this lap at the moment. And these will be the first times on the board in the session for the Jinx Shifters cars. They're all a little bit wide at McPhillamy Park. That'll cost him a 10th or so. But reason why they are running like this is they want to give each other some help. The slipstream down Conrod Straight can be crucial to setting a fast lap time. But you've got to make sure that you're within 1.5 seconds max of the car in front for the slipstream to have its full effect. Looks like the gap is good between these two. So let's see how this lap turns out for Coxhead and Loxton ahead.
Yep, they've got themselves a nice, clean pocket of air to work in. Everyone else is more or less, well, apart from a couple of guys at the head. Yeah, these guys here at the front are out clear compared to everyone else. So into the chase they already come, and out the other side as well. That's though a bit of curb there for Coxer that'll hurt the run out of the chase there initially. We'll gather it up and keep on going, but it's not the kind of stuff you necessarily want, as more of a straighter drive out of the final turn from Loxton. Coxhead, though, despite that little slip and slide on the run of the chase, is able to pip the 209, but neither of them able to unseat the Alts Australian number 24 at this stage. And then we've got stuff like this happening here. As drivers are setting laps, but there we go. They get that sorted out before they start braking for the chase, but that's bordering on messy.
Yeah, just a little, and it looks like a few of these drivers have decided, yeah, we're not going to be able to set fast times there. Stanaway among the drivers pulling into the pits there and not setting a valid lap time, as Connor Nixon just came across the line there for Vermilion Motorsports and put it into what is now third, because Ian Ford has just gone fastest. First driver into the 202 bracket in this session.
There we go. So that sets quite a bit more of a representative benchmark down, because you have 7 tenths as well. And so anyone in this group so far, as well as the drivers from our opening 15 cars as well. So that's going to start showing where the pace might just lie in this session. Expect a couple more tenths again, of course, as our final top 20 drivers make their way out on track in due course too. But who knows, maybe that kind of lap there for me in full good enough to perhaps throw up a couple of surprises for those coming in qualifying 3.
Well, this will be the in-lap for Ian Ford, and an out-lap is beginning here for Benjamin Smith in the Gutter Night race on Oz Mustang. Car 947 looking to put a time on the board, as is car 13 with Justin Wallace at the wheel. There's a very colourful livery there just up ahead of him, with Matt Whitaker in the Fishy Motorsports Mustang, getting a little crossed up coming down the S's. I think this is potentially an in-lap or an out-lap for him, because last time we saw him he was involved with a few cars very close around him on Conrod Straight.
Close indeed, but able to make it work for the time being at least. So carry on speed building there down Connor. Let's go on board with, he grabs first gear on the S's. So that's a double downshift that I don't think was intended by any stretch of the means. Nice spot there. Thank you very much, Jay. Yeah. So that explains a bit of how that car got out of control, but thankfully that didn't cause any troubles for the motor, but he will still come to the lane and reset and try again. Will Whitaker in that 063 machine for Fishy Motorsports. Deciding that perhaps that was a bit too much of a time loss there to continue on.
The lap time from Ruben Goodall in the first qualifying session is looking pretty good as things stand. We now have 21 times on the board, and he still remains in provisional P2 as more cars make their way out onto the circuit and go for a slowish outlap just to keep the tyres fresh for the hot lap. Here's Vincent Skilbeck, meanwhile. He just set a 204.4, putting that car in provisional P19. I get the feeling this is a bit of a quick in-lap for him. You'll notice that a lot of in-laps are going to be quite quick, and the drivers will certainly be pushing, because remember, the no escape rule is active. You do have to bring the car into the pits under its own power before you escape out and reset to go for another run. So the drivers have to judge how much time is left in the session and how they're going to play it on the way through to the last few minutes. Richie Stanaway, meanwhile, just starting a hot lap here. Got plenty of experience on this track in the real world, and he was one of the first drivers who races in meet space to really have a red-hot go at the iRacing service. He, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Scott McLaughlin, some of the original drivers from this area of the world, to really go for it on the sim, and he's certainly going for it into the cutting. That is a beautiful line through the corner, just controlling the wheel spin across the bump, coming up to Reed and Silman Parks. You can keep it almost flat out through this sequence, but you have to lift off through Metal Grate, run up the hill, and then McPhillamy Park, another dab of the brakes, at the very least a lift of the throttle. Take care across the curb, run across Skyline, down to the S's. You are braking and turning the whole time here, Dan. It's so difficult to slow any car up through this section.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. These are the kinds of cars that are probably some of the most difficult, of course. No ABS, fairly decent amount of weight to them as well, at almost 1.4 tons. And yeah, fairly modest specifications. As watch here with Stanaway. He's going to be mindful because there's a bit of traffic starting to form of sorts in the chase. He'll catch them just as they're exiting this sequence there, as there they are on screen. Whilst it's all been happening, Ben Christensen has joined Ian Ford in eclipsing Ruben Goodall's time from qualifying 1 here, as Stanaway commits to the end of his lap. And it looks like for him, thankfully, he'll not be interfered with at all, as that looks neat and tidy around the final turn. He will also go to a 202.8, and that will comfortably put him second. There with that one. No, it won't,
just
because
behind him, yeah, a Pleb Sim Sport car with Kurt Stenberg at the wheel has just gone to the 202.8s as well and up to provisional P2. So that's what that car is. Kurt Stenberg, of course, another veteran competitor of this series. He was there when V8SCOPS began, and tell you what, certainly lost none of his pace despite taking a bit of a break from this series, as has been the case with a few drivers out there. Still, I think that was a pretty clean lap there from Richie Stanaway, and an excellent banker that he can improve on.
oh yeah, without a doubt, that will be now times for these two drivers, Stanaway and Stenberg in particular, they can improve on. Certainly nothing need to be taken away from there, as whilst we had Stenberg there, Stanaway on the bottom of the screen for a bit, the HJR pair go again out on their own, and Loxton, unfortunately, no, the 2:03.0 that he just did there did not count for him. Chris Coxhead behind, though, goes to a 2:03.140. Moves himself up into original P4 at this stage. Looks like our next car's crossed the line. Going to be James Chastaneff in the 427 Banter Alliance racing car. He's followed also by the 307 Fishy Motorsports entry. Chassis, not a very competitive time there on the board. It's just ahead. Connor Nixon moves the Vimian Motorsports 168 to P4. 2:03.6. Will that do? It's a improvement, but still a second off our fastest time so far.
Yeah, it was a big gain though. Managed to get the car all the way up to P16. So there's still a lot of potential for improvement there in the 427 as Michael Whiting brings it across the line. 2:03.0. That is an excellent job there. Puts himself into P5. Michael Taliancic in the Altus Australia 777 ahead of him just set a time as well. Those cars only separated by 0.02 of a second. And it goes to show how close the gaps are in this series once more. We talk about it every single round. I mean, these cars, they are driving Holden Commodores and Ford Mustangs, but they have the same physics set underneath them, and it's all down to the driver. The series is so competitive that there's barely anything between some drivers.
Without a doubt, yeah, that is exactly, that is how things play out here for us. And yeah, we'll be curious to see as the times go here, of course. Still got about another 10 minutes for this. Oh, sorry, not 10 minutes, about 5 minutes for this group. Call it 6 because that's what it actually is, plus change. So we'll see if the times compress a little further for the guys who are still out here on track. And then, of course, how things look right at the top because Coxhead has just driven into the back of his teammate on pit entry, trying to minimise the time spent in the pits. I mean, the advantage of being in the virtual world, of course, Reese, they can reset those cars. That's not a real big deal. It hasn't immobilised either of them. It's just a little one of those moments, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, certainly a lot less awkward than it would be in real life. Here we go. This is how it happened looking back from Brett Loxton. And also less awkward than it happening on race day too. Oh, yeah, that was quite the closing speed there. At the very least, Coxhead slowed down to the pit speed limit very quickly.
I'd be saying that Coxhead there going a little too quick for the pit entry there, and ending up relying on his teammate, as it were, there to help slow things down a touch. As focusing on things on track, looking here at Vincent Skilbeck, the 091 for Wheelie Bins Mayhem Republic. Little twitch there as he looks to get set up for a lap, I would suspect, given that we're not looking at current times for him, which is
actually, no, that was a hot lap. 2:03.7 up to 18th.
All right, so there, time on the board for Skilbeck. P18 does put him in the thick of things at 1.1 seconds off our best time so far. But now got one more chance to go improve.
I would suggest, Jay, we'll keep looking at Ben Christensen for a second, but I would strongly suggest you look at Ian Ford on Conrod Straight. There's a little bit of a queue of cars forming here. Everyone trying to go as slow as possible. To keep some temperature in these tyres. Look at them coming over the top of the hill here. We've got Ian Ford, then Richie Stanaway, then Kurt Stenberg, then Ben Morris and Ben Smith, all touring together around the circuit. This is going to be one of their final runs here, and obviously they want the tyres to be in the best condition possible.
Yeah, no one also willing to lead there in that circumstance. They'll have to be mindful, though, that at the rate they're going, Ben Christensen here in the ANZ Motorsports number 9, he will catch them. Nope. Looks like Ford is just starting to... Nope.
He faked out. Again. He faked them out. He accelerated up, and Richie Stanaway then moved to the front of the queue. They slowed back down again.
They've stopped. They need to move.
What? No, they got to move. You can't stop on the track in qualifying, guys. All right. It's all a game, really. Now Kurt Stenberg, I think he's had enough of that business, and he's decided to streak away from them as Christensen is just coming up on them now. Smith lets him go. This is going to be awkward. Moving on through the middle of Ian Ford, Richie Stanaway and Ben Morris, and towards the end of a lap.
We've got more cars incoming.
Yeah, that was an interesting moment, and it's going to get more interesting as Christensen does not improve on his lap.
Oh, they've completely killed Connor Nixon's attempt at the lap, I think.
Yeah, I don't know about that, guys. I mean, they come to start their hot lap now, but it looked like a bit of shenanigans there coming down to the final couple of corners.
Okay, they might be lucky. I think Nixon might just have been on an... Yeah, okay, no, they get lucky there. This is Nixon was late on an outlap as replay from the top down. Christensen on that flying lap attempt. Part the seas as everyone was trying to find a way through. Nixon here, thankfully, was setting up for another flying lap attempt. He is now in the thick of it. So thankfully, this wasn't a lap lost for the 168, but could easily have been so. There, that's for sure. And in fact, I really should have looked carefully because I could have told you for a fact beforehand if he was on a lap or not. Anyways, they all press on, but it's Ben Morris leading this closest pack of cars, although you've then got just ahead Stanaway with some clean air at the front of it as well, I guess you could say, as well, in particular, track the sectors of Ian Ford and Richie Stanaway in Ford. Gains a 10th on that this current run versus Stanaway with the climb up the mountain. There's Morris, though, wide through the dipper. That might hurt 40.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. As Ford gets ever closer coming into Forest Elbow. He's going to try his best to nail the exit, but oh no! Looks like Stanaway was slow there, just up ahead of them, and ended up making contact, did Ben Morris. Stanaway very slow at the apex of the chase. Morris lifts off, and Ford has to lift out of it too. Connor Nixon is going to keep going here. This is looking like a bit of a messy set of events in the middle of this qualifying session. Good sector times for Nixon, though. Let's see if this pays off for him.
Well, he might have just been far enough back to avoid the worst of that one there. And yeah, Stanaway, Morris, and Ford, all three of them there, chance at another run here. Invalidated by Stanaway's mistake on the exit of the elbow. As across the line will go Connor Nixon, 2:02.8.
Nice.
That will jump from 5th to 3rd as now we have that grouping of cars, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at this stage. Now really basically close together as, yeah, with 1 minute left in the session. The only cars that look like they're going to get either finish a lap or get a chance to improve on one. Vincent Skilbeck currently pushing on an out lap to get ready to get there in time. I believe that will be the last car that will get a chance to set a lap here. As you see, cars already in the pits, and looks like they'll be done as well. Well, they're already committing to being done at this point.
Yeah, well, we saw some improvements there from the Altus Australia 777 and two of the Fishing Motorsports cars, I believe the 307 and the 063. James Shastanerf getting up into the top 10. And of course, Michael Taliancic pulling the 777 up to provisional P5 so far, as Skilbeck is going to back off here. That's going to be the end of qualifying for the 091. And apart from that, I don't know if there's many drivers out there on a hot lap right now. Kurt Stenberg did go out on track again, but it was after the 1 minute warning was called. So Stenning will not get another opportunity to do a lap there regardless. That 2:02.8, I think the drivers of car 47 should be very happy with. The end of the session is there, and Matt Whitaker looks like getting into the 2:03s there in the 063. That was a nice improvement there for that particular Fishing Motorsports car. Aside from that, yeah.
Vincent Skilbeck actually did get across the line in time, and by the looks of things, is committing to a lap here at the very least. Trying to improve on it. Yeah, he actually was on an out lap there and got to the line. Was at turn 1 when the checkered flag sign was called. So let's ride with him here, because from what my timing says, he's the last car, because everyone else had just finished a run and was now just cycling back to the pit lane, whereas the 091 here potentially looking to put one final time on the board and move up from 19th at this stage in qualifying, with our final 20 or so cars left to come. The curb there on the way in, Reeves, it gets a little dicey for him, and he's got a little bit of brake lock at the apex, but gets it pulled up and gets it pointing in the right direction with the right foot on tap. And as despite all that, he will not go for another chance, and will indeed, as you must have just picked it earlier. Brings it into the lane.
All right, so these are the qualifying standings so far. Ian Ford, Kurt Stenberg, and Connor Nixon are your top three. Stanaway running a time good enough for fourth in the 202s. Last car in the 202s so far, Altus Australia 777 with Mike Taliansich at the wheel. Loxton, Whiting, Coxhead, Kirby, and Shastanerf will round out the top 10. Then we move on through to Ben Christensen, Ruben Goodall, who of course is another real-life driver. He races in the Toyota 86 series. Still good enough for P12 so far. So everyone down to Benjamin Smith here provisionally might be able to scrape into the top 15 shootout. But remember, we still have 20 more cars to go out there to set times, and those are the real heavy hitters in terms of one-lap pace.
Yeah, that they are. So that will be the test coming coming our way, I should say, to wrap things up. And then, well, then it's not wrapped up, because then we'll go again with the top 15 to settle the final order of the field. As we're advised, and have a look here at the in-sim weather conditions at this stage, approaching 4 o'clock virtual time at the mountain. And we have lost quite a few degrees in track temperature. Air temperature looking fairly much static at this point, Reese, but when temperature on the track coming down to 26 degrees, looks like our drivers here in the final group going to be given plenty of opportunities here to put their best foot forward.
Yeah, for sure. Green flag is about to fly for this final qualifying session, and yeah, these cooler track temperatures will really benefit those top teams in terms of lap times. 3 kilometer an hour wind speed in from the south. That means that there's a little bit of a tailwind down Conrod Straight and a little bit of a headwind up Mountain Straight. If my geography serves me. I do like looking at maps, so I think it will. In any case, that means we're going to be seeing some very fast speeds at the end of Conrod on these laps, even more when they have cars potentially in front of them.
Yeah, let me just double check that one, because I've got an icon on my track. I'm just going to check if I've got if it's the compass north or if it's the wind direction. It is the wind direction arrow, and yeah, right now it is telling me it is a tailwind along the start-finish straight. It's crosswinding. It's a crosswind across Conrod and Mountain, with southerly winds at this particular moment in session, as we get the green flag from race control for our third and final group of drivers here in qualifying. Now, top 20 pre-qualifying cars are now released onto the circuit, and yeah, we'll keep an eye on that weather to see how things go. Yeah, I can actually keep tabs on the wind during the session and which way it's blowing, because yeah, at the moment though, trending tailwind start finish line into a very slight tailwind up Mountain Straight, but like it's more cross than tail still.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we'll put that to the back of our minds for now and focus on the outlaps for this final group of cars. Jason Bentz is going to be leading the way. He's driving with Brian Borg tomorrow in the Piff Puff Racing Car 017. Obviously carrying Racecraft Simulations logos emblazoned across this car. We also have Alpha Venturi out there again too.
Oh my goodness.
Oh dear. Yeah, something's gone very wrong on the run up to Griff, on the run up to the cutting. That's Riley Bilson in the 9.5 Sim Sport Mustang on his side. And oh dear, looks like that's another 9.5 car involved in that, as well as the 94 Synergy Sim Racing entry, which, judging by lap times, is going to be the car to beat in this session. So that's already Jared Philsell and James Scott on the back foot here with a heavily damaged car right at the start.
Wilson's trying to right the 995, but he's just been given permission to tow though, I think. So we'll watch this here. Yeah, the 94. Yeah,
everyone was
minding
just
the
trying
pace.
to go for the same bit of track. Oh no. See, this is the problem with these kinds of tactics in qualifying when you're slowing right down. Everyone coming in behind doesn't know what's going on through a blind corner. And, if you slow down and try to let people by, I mean, obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but it does result in a bit of awkwardness when a bunch of cars come piling into the same corner. So I think that might be the end of the session for car 995. In any case, one car that made it out ahead of all of that, wasn't even near the spot where it happened, was the 017. Let's see what Jason Bentz can do.
He's now got plenty of clear track to his name, and that might just be the most valuable commodity in this session. Draft be damned. Really seems to be the case here. Right, so we focus on Bentz halfway up Mountain Straight and building speed for this first run in qualifying.
Looks like everyone else behind is just starting hot laps as well in their big groups. James Scott bringing the SSR 94 back into the pits to get that damage repaired and move back out there, see if they can grab their position in the coveted top 15. So Bentz's first sector, 46099. Let's see then what he'll be able to do across the top of the mountain here. Benzi and Borgie have been veteran competitors in this series as well. Let's see if their multitudes of experience around this track play well into their hands for this session. A nice clean run in the dipper.
It's just going back to listen to the in-game radios and confirm, well, what I just heard on the radio was that the 95 SimSport 995 might be getting a bit of an exemption in that particular instance. The be-all end-all of the result was indeed it will be permitted back on circuit to attempt qualifying, so they will not be consigned to a rear of grid start based on all of that one there. But back to Jason Bentz. Attempt here out on his own. 017 now, just one corner to negotiate on this first qualifying lap for him. Don't know if that was a little wide of the apex there from the TV camera angle we had, but it'll be a 2028. Respectable, and does beat everyone but Ian Ford's time in Group 2. So that's a good time, I'd say, all things considered, Reese, to build off of there now.
All right, next group of cars coming across the line. Alpha Venturi 093 going into 22nd. It's a 202.3 for the Trans-Tasman Racing 51. And the number one car pips it to pole position. And we have cars in the 201s now. That is a stonking time from Brady Myers, with Andrew Gilliam coming across the line in the Altus Esports entry to also get into the 201s. Provisional P2 for now. Here we go. These are the kinds of rapid lap times we were expecting.
Yeah, now everyone winding up to pay. Well, that's their first laps at the same time, though. So I guess, yeah, looking forward to seeing how this goes. And Brady Myers making a statement there with that first lap to go to the top of the charts for now and see what they can do from here. Eyes further on back at the 9.5 cars with obviously damaged and having to reset. They're now just starting their attempts. James Scott, Sean McNamara, Riley Bilson, the three drivers of these cars in the order as they cross the line there to start what will be their first actual attempts at a lap. Looks like for all of them, with everyone else will be heading back to the pits in due course. They're in a comfortable spot, all things considered for now.
Well, another standout performance from that first salvo of laps was Dylan Rudd in the 9.5 SimSport 93. He's been looking very pacey this year. And Sean McNamara here is the manager and leader of 9.5 SimSports, driving another retro livery out there tonight. Let's see what he can do coming into the first sector. So it was about 46-second first sector time that we saw from Jason Bentz, and it's pretty close there for McNamara. If he can stay in touch with James Scott just up ahead of him, should get an excellent run down Conrod Straight. We are still waiting on a lap time from that number 94 who topped practice.
Yep, obviously out of sequence, mind you, of course, with everything at this point, thanks to that pile-up, I guess you could call it. Not what we usually see in qualifying, and when everyone's doing qualifying pace on the outlap at least. But, well, they're off of the elbow now and heading down Conrod Straight, so this will be a chance to see their times. And, well, if the way they've spread out is anything to go by, we might want to focus on James Scott first, because that was not the gap when they came around the final turn to start this first flying lap attempt. And I get the feeling...
those sectors.
Yeah, if Brady Myers' time was anything to go by, James Scott might certainly have something in reply here as he brings it into Murray's for his first flying run. And let's see here as the time will flash up.
Oh, yeah.
2:01.657 will dispatch Brady Myers from the top of the provisional timing charts.
Wow, that's fantastic there. Of course, for the broadcast, we're splitting the laps into 3 timing sectors, but iRacing splits tracks into 5 for the most part. And tell you what, it looked like James Scott had the fastest middle sector of anyone, 17.9 seconds, and I believe that's the run down the hill and through the S's. So that is going to be an interesting time to beat. Is there anything that Myers and Gilliam will be able to do? It looks like Gilliam's going to be getting some help there with his stablemate car ahead of him. Brady Myers, though, up at the head of a train here, going off the circuit there just to let a few cars through. Looks like we're going to be getting race control reviewing that incident at turn 2 post-qualifying, and no surprise there. I think there's a couple of things to work out if we have drivers slowing right down on an outlap around a circuit with as many blind corners as this one.
Yeah, hopefully we won't see anything else like that for this final now 10 minutes left here in qual. You see, got drivers like Brady Myers, who's followed by Philip Krause at the stage, taking their time on the way to set up this next lap. But we've got drivers like James Scott going at full tilt to get back to the pit lane and reset. So this is where I think a little interesting. Again, Myers takes to the grass.
Oh no, there we go. Another coming together as drivers run slow on outlaps and in-laps on their way to start a lap or go into the pits. It's just a bit too awkward out here. I mean, and this is after we've split the qualifying into 3 separate sessions. There's less cars on track than there would be otherwise, and we still have stuff like this happening.
It was an odd one there because Myers went to the grass through the kink in the chase to get out of the way, and then comes back onto circuit just as McNamara is going past, and we get contact there. So, more mess that has to now be dealt with as we look at Josh Anderson in the second of the Trans-Tasman Racing cars out here in Group 3. And I haven't seen TTR do a retro-inspired paint job like this in the time that I've been commentating, but, well, at the very least, not this particular design. But I have to say that she looks very nice and, you know, fits the usual team colours for the most part here. So, credit to the team for getting this organised for this weekend. And see here, Ando, well, it's a little deep in, but still gets it pulled up for the dipper, and that looks to have not hurt things too much at the stage. And you can see he's still completely committed and leaving about 0 margin to the walls, whilst still staying off them, of course.
Well, the Aussie Racing Cars champion Josh Anderson now out of Forest Elbow. And away we go. He's not going to get much of a slipstream down Conrod Straight. His fastest lap, of course, there, 2:02.3. Will he be able to beat it, especially with the traffic that he has found on this lap? Hard on the brakes coming down into the chase. Now, will he peel into the pits? Is he happy with this lap? Looks like the answer is no. So Josh Anderson will exit stage left. Matthew Bowler, meanwhile, coming out onto the start-finish straight for Evolution Racing Team, and that's a 202.3 for them. That's a nice elevation up to P5, 2 places gained, but immediately Tom Freer in the Synergy Works racing car goes into P5. That is an excellent time there from that team. Still not breaking into the 201s, though. We have 4 cars below the 202 bracket. And Corey Shepherd, driving for Fishy Motorsports in this round, improving up to 9th.
Yep, so that puts him pretty covered. Because also crucially now, we might even want to start really talking about that top 15 threshold, where that's going to leave drivers here. And crucially, look at who's out on track that can potentially displace Kurt Stenberg. Someone perhaps like Damian Johnson, currently qualifying the 033 Synergy Sim Racing entry. Jordan Saberis, we know he's not the faster of the 2 drivers that are running the Alpha Venturi 093 for the Endurance Cup races so far. See though if he can get a little better than 32nd to start. Also trying to see if there's anyone else on track at this stage. That might be Riley Bilson. There we go. Thank you, Jay, for finding that for me there. In the 995, could they potentially be able to move up? I think that might be the interesting thing to really start looking at now. Because with a couple of cars here in Group 3 that haven't set a representative time or gotten their lap just right. Let's see someone like Kurt Stenberg here getting a chance at a shootout lap to come later this evening. Robbie Gibbs too as well. P18 for him at this stage. He'll be looking to go better than that.
Yeah, indeed. Damian Johnstone, meanwhile, part of the vast Synergy Sim Racing squad. The bright yellow Mustang is going to pull it into the pits just behind Tom Freer there in the number 707. That is going to be another run over for those guys. Geordie Sinney, meanwhile, part of the Altus Australia squad. He's towing Andrew Gilliam along down Conrod Straight. Now, is this going to be the improvement that Gilliam is looking for with Sinney pulling him along? No, doesn't look
Neither car's on a flyer. They've actually done one already for this run.
Right, yeah, and it looks like Gilliam's one didn't work out, unfortunately. 204.5 was Gilliam's last lap, so they still have one more chance to get going. Yeah. Looking here at Jacob O'Reilly and Riley Bilson, by my markings, they're just about to potentially finish a lap both. But Bilson, little mistake for him, pulls into the pits and aborts. O'Reilly here, jumping out of his planned Archer Brothers entry and pairing up with Ben Faulkner under the Villiam Motorsports branding. Does improve to P20 there, Reese, but that's still going to put them done and will set their grid position at this stage in qualifying with that time there. 4 minutes 45 on the clock, and drivers starting to come out of the pit lane now. This will probably be their final chance to prepare for a flyer here in Group 3. Yep, Jason Bentz here, and the 017 was the first car to set a time in this group. So they are very well placed to have another lap all on their lonesome with no traffic, no potential comings together ahead of them. At least, I certainly hope so. We can't see too far down the track in this section of the mountain. He's on a lap at the moment. Can he improve on that 202.8 that he set? That was a lovely run into Forest Elbow. Didn't look like the car was complaining at all.
Yeah, pretty close to the walls, but if he's got those margins right, that's all that matters here. As he brings it down into the chase, looking at almost and just over 290 kilometers an hour in clean air for Bentz as he jumps on the brakes for the chase. Although he's got a little loose, a little wide, hangs onto it, but now the rear properly steps out on the exit. And I think, well, might want to come in and, abort that run. He can take one final slow out lap to try for another attempt here in qualifying. P14 on the bubble, but might just be on the right side of it here, Reese, when it comes to a potential shot in the shootout. Josh Anderson in the number 51, though. Oh, pardon me. Try and bring him up on my screens. Coming to the end of what might be his final chance at a flying lap. 2:01.9.
That's an improvement.
7th to 5th.
Yeah, nicely done there from Josh Anderson. I think that should secure their place in the top 15 as Robert Gibbs puts in a massive lap to improve to P9 just behind him. 2:02.5. That looked like a 5 or 6 position gain there. It has knocked Kurt Stenberg out of the top 15 shootout for the time being. Remember, Stenny was provisional P2 at the end of Group 2. So now we're starting to focus on that top 15. Who is on the bubble? Jason Benson, the Piff Puff car, is one of them. Let's see then how this group goes coming through the first turn now. Looks like Connor Nixon coming back out onto the track there for
Jacob
one
O'Reilly.
final. So yeah, sorry, Jacob O'Reilly. My apologies, getting my cars confused once more. He's just come out, and I think if he can work with the traffic here, he should be able to start a time before the session time hits 0. But now, keep our eyes focused on this group, because Andrew Gilliam currently P3. Can he take 2/10 out of his current best time and dethrone SSR WP Concreting from the top spot in this qualifying session?
And they're looking good so far. We'll see, 45.82 out. Unfortunately, can't bring up the sectors from James Scott's best lap to compare against, but committed into McPhillamy Park is Andrew Gilliam. Using the curb, Brady Myers on the other side of the track, though. He will pip James Scott's time at this stage. Scott, though, is in this group, so this could go back the other way here. As a quick replay from the slow motion angle there. That is the commitment from Andrew Gilliam on this lap here as he starts to climb up the mountain. Looks like so far, all okay. Committed on the exit of the elbow as well, right out to the wall. As yeah, we've got a pack of cars here all looking to set their final times in the session. There's less than a minute to go. And now, see who can challenge a 2:01.586 for the provisional pole position for the race tomorrow. On the brakes here, into the chase, Reese. Gilliam looks nice and composed. Car looks straight on the exit as well. One turn left for him to negotiate here in qualifying.
All right, it all comes down to this for Andrew Gilliam. Is this lap good enough? Out of the final corner and across the line, it is a 2:01.66. That is 1/100th behind Trans-Tasman Racing 1 as the 94 goes back to the top. 2:01.479 for James Scott. Brilliant times that we're seeing here at the end of this session as Damien Johnstone gets the SSR 033 up into 12th place. Now it looks like Jason Bentz has been moved out of the top 15. Philip Kraus, meanwhile, looks like he's just managed to start that lap before the time hit 0. Jason Bentz is now on a lap as well. So this is going to be interesting. Bentz needs to gain how much? Oh, he only needs to gain
100th and a half.
Yeah, a hundredth and a half. That's all he needs to get back into the top 15. This is going to be a massive lap from Jason Bentz.
Yeah, not much needed at all, and he's got a clear circuit across the top here. Everyone in behind already done with their runs, and there's no one on Conrod Straight as well to worry about as he brings it down through the S's to the dipper. Margins to the walls look all right. We just need him to needs, of course, to have a nice clean run here off the elbow, and then the chase is all that seems to remain. He's in close to the wall, but all good there. Maybe a little bit of space left there on the exit of the elbow as well, but that's just to ensure that the drive is now heading down the straightaway here and going for top speed, of course, at Conrod Straight.
All right, then. All he's got to do is nail the chase from here. 2:02.818. That's the time that he needs to improve on here. Does Philip Kraus have anything to improve upon here if he is still on a hot lap? Bentz goes into the final corner now. Let's see if he can beat a 2:02.785 and get into the top 15. He can! Jason Bentz pulling out all the stops right at the end. Now it's all down to Philip Kraus. Let's see if he can beat Sean McNamara. The gap between them is only half a tenth of a second. That's all Kraus needs. He is committing to the final corner now. 2:02.786 the time that he needs to improve on. And across the line he will come, but it's not going to be an improvement for Philip Kraus. Down to 17th place. That is a shame there for the Americans down under machine. But props to them all. They gave it a red hot go.
They sure did. The fact that Sean McNamara sneaks into the shootout by half a tenth there, perhaps a little surprising to some of us here. But this is the end of the qualifying provisional results, though, mind you, at this stage, given that we do have the incident on the outlap for Group 3, and also potentially I've seen the Race Control Requests channel flash a couple of times for me in the V8SCOPS Discord, so there might be a few other moments there that views are requested of, but this is how it stands for now, and James Scott on top by a tenth of a second over Brady Myers. That will be one I'm looking forward to watching come the shootout later this evening. Reese, those two back and forth throughout the session. Andrew Gilliam on the outside in, you could say, but only 800ths back from Brady Myers in P3. Then Dylan Rudd, Josh Anderson, a little further on back, but nothing in between either of them for 4th and 5th. Corey Shepherd, Tom Freer, 5th and 6th at this stage. So 6th for Shepherd. Should have moved on to Tom Freer in P7th. Matthew Bolwell there, going to get one of the Evolution Racing Team cars inside the top 10 with 8th place at this stage. Rehan Leonage, almost a 10th further back there in 9th. And Geordie Sinney, P10 at this stage. First of the Old Australia cars there, about a second off of James Scott's time, though, at this stage.
Yes, Robbie Gibbs gets into 11th. Johnstone, Ford, Bence and McNamara will be the final drivers to take part in the top 15 shootout later on tonight. And just missing out, this is where they're going to be starting on the grid for tomorrow, at least provisionally. O'Reilly, Kraus, Bilson, Stenberg and Nixon will round out the top 20 in their respective teams. And then moving back through the field, man, this has been certainly a huge session. Stanaway just outside the top 20 in the Ritchie Stock Shot Machine. Altus Australia in 22nd. Moving back through, it's certainly going to be interesting to see where these drivers end up at the end of 1,000 kilometers of racing tomorrow.
Yeah, and whilst they are towards the back half of the field, certainly going to be a long race ahead of them, and therefore making sure they look after themselves in the opening couple of laps. That will be what they're aiming for, that's for sure, as it's 45 cars that set a time here in qualifying this afternoon. A couple of teams not able to be here this afternoon, and also actually total 3 cars in the session not setting a time, and a couple other teams who weren't able to make qualifying this afternoon, which will make for a 50-car grid come tomorrow morning. Well, with that all said and done there, Reese, believe we might be taking a short break here because we do have a little bit of time before the shootout starts, and possibly a supports race, or unless I'm looking at
race 2 of the V8s is coming up next here on SimSpeed TV, so make sure to stay with us. We've got some more racing action coming before it is one-on-one driver versus track for the top 15 shootout for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV. It's time to continue racing action here before the top 15 shootout for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. We have one more race to go in our support categories. The V8s, we already saw Scott Rankin and David Haynes take you through the first race of V8's action tonight, which was certainly a very interesting race to go through. Lots of action, lots of crashes, lots of contact. Let's hope the things are a tiny bit cleaner this time around. Reese Gardner and Dan Yeaman with you in the comms box. Jay Kennedy on production. All right, let's round this out with some more racing action, Dan, before we get into qualifying, and then we can gear up for something like 7 or 8 hours of comms tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the fun and games to worry about tomorrow morning. But yeah, about 4 minutes to go until we'll head to the grid for this final race of the support categories for the weekend. And looking forward to seeing how things go here as a result. So I missed out on all the fun and what sounds like potentially slightly exciting moments earlier this afternoon, based on the way you were describing things there. So curious to see what that or how that goes. I'm just getting myself set up and ready to roll for this race here on my end as well. But 18 laps sprint race coming our way. Unfortunately, still got some issues with these VF Commodores. The air jack supplier not quite got things fixed up for these cars yet, so we are left with a sprint race rather than a Bathurst 250 as has been done in years past for these now legacy spec cars.
Yeah, an excellent initiative here by the team at Oceanic Sim Racing, with the Heat 1 result going to James Anderson, 5.5 seconds ahead of Aaron Gilbert, with Dion de Graaf completing the podium. It will be interesting to see what they can do in this first few laps of this race, because it's always a bit of it's always a bit up in the air how things are going to go on the first lap in a session here at Bathurst. Such a difficult circuit. Everyone wants to do well. Everyone thinks they can attack the circuit 100% on the first lap, but that is rarely the case.
Oh, no. Yeah, enough times, a track like this, you need to give it some respect. Otherwise, yeah, certainly at risk of falling afoul of the place. And yeah, you just cannot afford to be pushing the limits straight out of the gate around a circuit like Bathurst. Even with an 18-lap sprint for these guys like we have coming up here in a second. So, yeah, making sure that you get through lap 1, then maybe you can start thinking about winding yourself up into a bit more of a competitive attack at things. That's probably the way to put that one there. As yes, just watching drivers here. They've had an hour and a half to quote-unquote warm up between these the race earlier this afternoon and here and now. So hopefully everyone ready to rock and roll here. Is unfortunately for Joshua King, that's backwards at Sulman Park and lidless to boot.
Yes, indeed. Dan Stevens, for Middle Finger Racing, you can always count on him to put a few interesting bits on the livery. And as we reveal the rest of it, that looks very nice indeed. A bit of a retro flavor on the Middle Finger Racing cars. And I gotta say, it's amazing to see the amount of effort that's been put in throughout the field as the whole field is running retro liveries of some kind. Seeing a couple of compliments towards the Fishing Motorsport cars as well. It's going to be a fun one, this one, Dan, particularly for my brain, because I'm used to these drivers being in certain liveries throughout the season. Changing them all for one round, I might get a few names wrong throughout the night.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to help you out there and keep eyes on things as the racing goes on. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see these cars and the paints in action. Certainly was aware of the plans and the pictures that were being shared of these paints as we were getting ready for racing today. And now a chance to get ready to rock and roll. So let's take you through the grid here for our final V8s race of the weekend. And yeah, James Anderson, the Simblacks racing entry, going to be on pole position. Yeah, number 70. Unfortunately, I don't think I can remember what that paint being right. It's the Lansvale Smash repairs. And actually, that makes sense now. It's said. I can vaguely remember that from my early childhood. Aaron Gilbert's car. That doesn't need any introduction there in the number 1. And then Dion DeGraff saw the Simblacks car. Going to start at 3rd. Dylan Gray alongside him in 4th. P5 going to be in Stephen Vargas' hands. Tim Nicol alongside him in P6. And then be Liam Jacobs once he hits the grid, sharing row 4 with Henry King. Gavin Cox and Joe Mahoney to round out your top 10. Sean Slater, Matt Hayward on row 6. Nick Parker taking to the grid today with Tyson Hammer alongside him 14th. 15th for Dan Stevens, 16th for Scott Stevens. And in fact, the grid keeps on going. How many cars have we got in this one? Oh,
28 cars, and it looks like the revs are rising. We're about to get going for race 2 of the V8s. 18 laps is go right now. And James Anderson getting a fantastic run off the line. Looks like Gilbert was a little slower than he was expecting. It's a great run from Dylan Gray in the 052. We saw him in race 1 put on some interesting performances, and they get through turn 1 cleanly, at least at the front of the field. The rear of the field is a completely different story. Pavlovich, Bruns, Miller, King, and Vassal all involved at the first turn, as Dylan Gray now has to try and defend.
Trying to defend, he might.
Contact, easy does it.
He just keeps it off the wall, though, on the outside of turn 2. That certainly could have gone a whole lot worse. unfortunately, it's not looking so great. Indeed, still at turn 1. The 24 machine has only just got going now. As the rest of the field already streaking up through the cutting, and Reed Park to get that opening lap underway here. Focusing on Stead Miller actually calling a tow in the number 24 on the exit of the hell corner. So told to hold position, is off the track. Get the feeling this might still trigger a safety car, waiting on that decision to come through though from the race control team, as the rest of the field now already down into the dipper. And no, he'll be cleared. So here on lap 1 as Craig Mason, trouble in the S for him in the 47.
Oh dear. Yeah, he's spun across the track and this car's coming in on him. Oh, he just got rear-ended by Colin Bruns, who was coming through at racing speed, and now that's heavy damage on car 111. It looks like Danny Vassell managed to get through that. Vassell was the car that unfortunately made contact with Stead Miller and turned him around at the first turn, and that car, of course, being out now. It's on for the lead, though. Dion de Graaf chasing down James Anderson here and has made the move on Aaron Gilbert. Some excellent runnings here across the start of the first lap. They are trailed very closely by Stephen Varga. That's your top 4 all together at the end of lap 1.
Indeed. Yeah. And so the field sort of gets into a bit of order at the front. Further on back, though, it is still plenty up for grabs and plenty of racing and dicing to be had here. There we go.
No.
Hanna and Stevens get together, and it's going to involve the 92. Oh my goodness, solo.
Sticks the landing, though.
Jamie Davis, 92 Autoserve racing car, unfortunately, also entangled in all of that one there. And with the issues for the VF Commodores preventing them from taking normal pit service, the temporary rules for the V8 races until that's fixed up by iRacing means that the pit lane is declared closed.
Oh, Dylan Gray deep in the cutting, and he's gone into the wall, losing positions. That's Matt Haywood, who's just made his way around him. Dylan Gray then falling to 8th spot now. And, oh wow, okay, this isn't going to be good. Gray's trying to keep control of this car, and Gavin Cox has to back out of it just to give him some space to recover that. But this is going to be a difficult last sequence of the lap here for Dylan Gray. He is struggling to maintain straight line in that car, and he takes to the runoff area. Looks like the race might be over there for the 052.
And he's called for a tow there, as we'll see it on the replay here. Oh, gets to the rear, stepping out through the kink that is turn 3, and yeah, clouts the wall with front and rear on the right side. In the cutting proper. He's parked it up still on that little bit of escape road down the S's, because that was such a handful for him to try and negotiate. No confirmation as to what the race control's going to do here. Leaders into the chase, and Aaron Gilbert eyeing off P2 from Dion de Graaf, as side by side almost, but not quite.
Whoa.
De Graaf able to stay ahead as they turn in for the
Safety
chase.
car.
Safety car will scramble as well, and that will neutralise the race here at the front, as out will pop the 0-0 machine. Pardon me, 000, Ben Christensen. Behind the wheel of that one there, and we'll pick up the leaders on Mountain Straight.
Little bit of a funny addendum to that. You notice the safety car was pulling out of the pits at quite a rate of speed. They've gotten themselves an iRacing black flag for speeding in the pit lane. But safety car being the safety car, they'll just clear those black flags, and things will continue on. They've managed to collect the front of the field very quickly here. And now we get a couple of laps to rest, as Dylan Gray will soon be instructed to escape back to the pit lane. It's a real shame there for Dylan. Remember, he started up in 4th place. Just unfortunate to see that. I don't know if it was the conditions or the stress of racing at the front of such a field, but this is what ultimately got it done for him. Another hit to add to the one that he got at the cutting, and you can see how much he was struggling to keep that car under control.
Yeah, if the damage on the right side of the car at the cutting wasn't enough, that really looks to have really finished it off there as he tried to make the climb up into Silman Park. So, yeah, unfortunate, that's for sure, but again, just proving the point of how fine the margins can be here on the mountain. With the field packed up behind the safety car, I would suspect Dylan Gray will be cleared to tow here in a moment, and that will also lead to potentially seeing us go back green here at the end of lap 3, but no confirmation just yet. And with the safety car about to approach McPhillamy Park, we might be waiting to have the field pass by the stricken car of Dylan Gray first, before he'll be cleared to tow. That still, though, does give time for us to get back in racing here at the end of this lap, potentially all the same.
Well, there is the stricken SLM car of Dylan Gray, and yeah, it was at the cutting where the majority of the incident really happened. It was just, I think Dylan was just pushing so hard in these first few laps. I mean, I could even see off the start, coming up to the to the end of the first lap, the car was just dancing around in every single braking zone. So this is the onboard of the initial part of the incident, and yeah, rear end went loose on him. He couldn't get it slowed down. The tires locked up, and that was the front right suspension already destroyed. Then, of course, that was that secondary hit to the left rear, I believe, or just general left side contact. In any case, the car has been cleared to tow. Dylan Gray is back in the pits, and I don't think he'll be coming out again anytime soon. The safety car has already pulled away from the field. Now it falls under the control of James Anderson. He and Dion de Graaf, both, of course, driving for the Simblacks team. They'll be looking to try and hold off Aaron Gilbert, who remains the series leader in the V8s category. Let's see how this next start goes.
Indeed. Now in the hands of James Anderson, Dylan Gray actually declaring his intent to retire, and with the fact that the pit lane has been temporarily closed for these races with the VF jack problems, there was going to be no way back out once he committed to towing. But clean start at the apex of the chase for Anderson in the number 70, and de Graaf has been able to go with him very nicely, and they have dropped Aaron Gilbert respectively. They take what would be a green flag at the stand from Barney to get lap 4 underway and back at racing speed here in our final support category race here for the weekend of the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. And watch there, the field single file through Hell Corner this time round. Looks like everyone willing to play a slightly more patient game at this stage, and no sign of a move in the front half of the field just yet, although there's a nose possibly around Gavin Cox, was that, or even further back perhaps. Dan Stevens and Nick Parker, now the two that look to be starting to scrap on the back, or looking, Dan Stevens just outside the top 10 and looking at that P10 place there.
Yeah, beautiful onboard view here from Dan Stevens. Again, the retro liveries brought out for this round, nothing short of spectacular. Looks like Stevens is trying desperately to find a way past Nick Parker here, who we usually see driving the safety car in V8SCOPS proper. Dan, of course, running a livery that should be very familiar to a lot of people. Yes, it does have Mad As Designs signage on it, but sort of emulating that classic Kmart Racing livery, which we all love so much, particularly from Greg Murphy's fantastic pole lap in 2003. Let's see then how the Simblacks number 8 goes here. Matt Haywood chasing down Tim Nicol, who we've seen plenty of this year. He raced in the NTE series and has also taken regular part in the V8s category here in the V8SCOPS support series. The slipstream doesn't seem to have much of an effect there for Matt Haywood, but of course he's in the middle of a bit of a draft train at the moment. He was very aggressive over the curbs. A little further back, oh, that's some interesting goings on at the chase. That was Jonathan Bykoff up the inside of Sean Slater, and now Shane Bowen sees that he could potentially make a move here, but he backs off coming into Murray's. That's an interesting chain of cars there. More smoke from up ahead. Looks like someone locked up into Murray's, but seems only minor.
Yeah, minor, yes, but oh, there we go. Stevens and Parker come together at the apex of turn 1. Looks like contact turns Parker, but then also straightens him back up quickly enough. So that's just going to be a time and positions lost there, as that's Matt Haywood keep fending off Tim Nicol no, apologies. Looks like that was just passing Nickel for position there. And now with Parker and Stevens pushed further on back a bit, it'll be Gavin Cox. They're all starting to queue up behind. I mean, that's Dan Stevens, apologies, who's now leading this train. Parker's been spun again. Second time he's been hit, I think, and collected on the exit of the cutting. And the engine now a smoking heap as Danny Vassell looks like to have been the one that clipped him there in the number 97.
And the initial contact was with Jamie Davis, who tried going up the inside of Parker at the cutting. So that's a few cars now very stricken and I would presume out of the race. Here's how it happened. Davis just bounced off the inside wall for a second there. And I mean, Parker, oh goodness, that was heavy secondary contact. No wonder that car is smoking now. It's difficult when you're in the midst of a racing situation and you're just trying to recover from an incident. It can sometimes be difficult to be truly wary of cars trying to make moves on you. Still, you know, I'll leave that up to race control to decide how that incident goes. Meanwhile,
the car's being called again.
Oh no!
Vassell and Parker have both pulled it up on the runoff at the S's. And unfortunately, it's going to be a repeat practically of what happened to Dylan Gray. And well, at least in terms of where they've chosen to get the cars to, which is unfortunate. So start of lap 6. Race will freeze once again here in the field. Back compressed behind James Anderson. Now, you were just saying also about some of the paints. Where is the car I'm thinking of? Well, I did see we have obviously the two Mad As designs inspired. Where is it? Came on. But in the Stephen Vargas car in the 868, it's a little bit, well, very much the same car, but just, I guess, in saying that, looking at the logos and such on the car, that's very much a one-to-one recreation.
Yes, absolutely it is. Well, I suppose at the very least the colours are the same. James Anderson in the Simblacks racing car, once again emulating the Lansvale Smash Repairs livery. I think a similar livery to that is run by the 9.5 cars potentially in the 1000. Dion de Graaf, of course, with the beautiful shade of green on his Falcon. Really love that one. It's Russell Ingall's car from 2002, the Castrol livery. Aaron Gilbert and the rest. Oh yeah, Caltex. My apologies. Yeah, that's a combination of getting fed the wrong word and my own brain not working. Of course, the Team Jig Shifters cars, Dan, they don't need any introduction. That is clearly a Holden Racing Team-esque livery, but the Zuvacorn is still very much emblazoned on the side, and you also see the helmet of V8 Sleuth on there as well. V8 Sleuth has been a partner of Team Jig Shifters for quite some time, and this other Simblacks car, that is retro as heck, man. I love seeing these kinds of color schemes out there.
Well, yeah, I think, was it Simblacks said they were basically bringing a small fleet of Stone Brothers inspired cars for the event this weekend. See there that Tim Nicol switching out his usual colours for the Team Brock paint. And the Gavin Cox is now the first of the middle finger racing cars. That there is a bit more Castrol racing colours there. The second, well, the pair of Wilson's Industrial Racing cars. So it's Sean Stevens and Scott Stevens, Sean Slater, apologies there. Jonathan Bykov in the middle of them though. Being reminded that is the Aussie Mail Racing colours and scheme there for the number 68. Then we've got Cobalt Racing switching out, well.
That's the green-eyed monster.
Although unfortunately, missing the green eyes.
Yeah.
And Havlovich going Caterpillar with that one there. Reminded of Gary Rogers for Jamie Davis in the auto-serve car. And then so we zoom in onto it there. That's
Looks
how
like
it looks.
we're about to get going as well, so we won't be able to go through absolutely everyone, but I'll tell you what, it's amazing seeing all these colors out there in the sim world, and that is Jay's personal favorite, Dougal McDougal. Lovely Pepsi livery in the MFR Falcon there. But it looks like we're about to get back to green flag racing here with James Anderson and Dion de Graaf leading them. They executed the last restart perfectly. Is it going to be the same here? Aaron Gilbert, once again, getting left behind on the initial start. Team Communications at Simblacks, obviously at a higher level here. They have left everyone else in the dust coming into turn 1, and Aaron Gilbert is facing pressure from Stephen Varga for third place as the rest of the field makes their way through the first turn. A little bit of a lock-up for Josh King at the rear of the field, but otherwise it looks like everyone's gotten through the first turn cleanly. De Graaf starting to put the pressure on his teammate.
Can afford to for a bit here as they had that buffer, although Gilbert, the run up Mountain Straight has closed down a little bit now on those top two as they wind up into the cutting once more at racing speeds here. Lap 7 of 18 now for these drivers, so almost at the halfway mark, although you still want to try and get a couple more racing laps on the board here in these V8 machines. As dip down into the grate once more. Bit of a gap there from Gavin Cox in 8th to Mahoney in 9th. And this next pack of cars starting with Dan Stevens thereabouts, it seems. Back to your leaders as they come down the S's once again over the curb. Plenty of usage there. Getting it pulled up though to open the entry to the dipper, of course, critical for ensuring you maintain the momentum all the way down to Forest Elbow here. Let's see, Varga either aggressive or defensive, depending on which way you want to take your pick on it there. That was a couple of slides for Henry King and Matt Haywood, both off the elbow from that angle there, but they keep a decent amount of momentum and will be looking forward rather than backward, it seems, as we go to the race leader in James Anderson and look back at de Graaf behind him. The two Simblacks cars as they work their way a little bit further clear, it seems, down the straight. There's a wiggle there though for de Graaf, and that's going to make him potentially vulnerable even here at Murray's.
Yeah, certainly will. Notice the Stefan Adams has dropped down the order as well. Looks like that car is carrying quite some damage. And he might just pull it into the pits. Is now into turn 1. Aaron Gilbert continuing to try and pile this pressure on Dion de Graaf, unfortunately losing that time on the run down out of the chase. So now the pressure is on for the second spot on the podium. Here's what happened to Stefan Adams. It was just too deep into Forest Elbow, and that resulted in a lot of right hand down Conrod Straight. Here we go then into Griffins. Oh, de Graaf with a big slide up ahead of these guys. And that might open up an opportunity for Aaron Gilbert to get by, but moves in the cutting, we see that they don't often work out. So wisely, he backs out of it and allows de Graaf a bit of space to gather it up. All of this is allowing James Anderson to streak away. This is the slide for de Graaf. I think pretty well held, all things considered.
Yeah, gets it out on the 45 or thereabouts, but gathers it up fairly quickly as well, but proceeds to now have about 2 seconds between him and Anderson out front, and Gilbert 3/10 off the rear bumper of the number 20 in the process too. He now sort of leads this train of cars from second all the way back to about 6th here with Matt Haywood, I would say, as we'll watch down into the elbow once again. These drivers trying to get the cars sorted. That was a big bit of sideways action for Henry King. He just hangs on to it and somehow hangs on to enough of his momentum that he will be under pressure maybe here. Nope, he won't be, because that's clearly got a better straight line run, it seems, into the chase there. Able to eke out a margin as de Graaf defensive from Gilbert. Varga almost thinks there's a chance there up the inside for him in the 868. But no way through, and it compresses them all further. Anderson must be absolutely grinning. He's gained another second as a result of all this out in front.
Here we go then. Look at that slide there from Henry King. Barely giving it an inch on the exit of Forest Elbow. With James Anderson now taking the fastest lap once more. He is running quite a margin faster than everyone else out there. Now that he's gotten that lead, he's just pushing. He won't be able to help his teammate anymore. It's up to Dion de Graaf all by himself to try and keep this pursuing pack behind, 4 of them being Commodores.
Yep. Well, you could say something about parity, but I don't think that's the issue here. It's just personal preference.
Yes.
And the way things work out is de Graaf's gone wide on the exit of the cutting again in the meantime, and just means that Gilbert's going to be right underneath him all the way across the top, it seems. Just, that's now vulnerable in a straight line, obviously, with everyone stacked up behind him with the slipstream, and struggling now in quite a few of the turns, it seems, as they'll work their way down the hill here.
Yeah, well, the point I was going to make with that was Aaron Gilbert and Henry King are in HRT style emblazoned Commodores, and remember, they usually drive Falcons. So interesting to see that car choice has been changed there to reflect the grid, and well, that's what happened to Sean Slater just a few moments ago. Again, well held, just escaping disaster, though he is down a few positions.
Yep. There's a massive run for Henry King on Stephen Varga. Down Conrad, clears him before they turn in for the chase, though. Varga wants it back up the inside here as we hit the apex of the chase proper. Indeed, we'll take the spot back, and then that checks King up. Hayward wants a piece of the pie, although he's committed to the outside, or given the outside for the run to Murray's. Does free up the pressure on Aaron Gilbert to focus solely on chasing down de Graaf as Hayward tries to stick it round the outside of King, and he's a nose ahead across the line. So technically place is his, but now surely inside for Hell. Corner will give that spot back to the number 2 and possibly set up Tim Nicol as, oh my word, we've had a huge one further on back in the field.
Yeah, that's big. That is, Shane Bowen also involved in this too. Jonathan Bykoff trying to re-enter the racetrack there as Josh King came steaming in. Peter Pavlovich also involved in this. What on earth has happened at the end of the lap here? Let's keep an eye on Bykoff here. So he had a move put on him up the inside. I think that was by Jamie Davis or Josh King. I'm not quite sure. But it all came to a head down at Murray's. Safety car has been called again, and 216 behind, trying to go for the move. Bykoff just loses it on the exit of the corner.
Pavlovich taken out as the first car on the scene. Bowen, the second car, gets tagged 38, I think I saw. And yeah, Josh King shows up now. It was Jamie Davis in the 92 that was in front of Bykoff there. Out of the chase. We also have, so yeah, we've got 3 cars awaiting a tow request. As we're going to go to Sean Slater, it is in the number 39 of the Wilson's Industrial Sales.
Already had one adventure this lap.
So a little wide there, and then where do you go? Unfortunately, not many options given him.
Yeah, not much to be done there. But he did manage to escape the worst of it. So, unfortunately, that still results in a lot of damage for that Commodore, and it looks like the steering might be off as well. So that might be, once again, another retirement. Yeah, you can see that car's crabbing a little bit. Looking on board the 91 of Josh King, and this is Jonathan Bykoff getting rolling again as King was coming through. Get the feeling that Bykoff might be up for an appointment with the stewards for that rejoin.
No, man, there is no other way around that one. That was quite the disaster, to put it mildly there. So, takes out 3 cars completely. Has also further damaged at least another 2 in this race. So unfortunately for Pavlovich, Shane Bowen and Joshua King, their racing is now over and done. And looks like Sean Slater there bringing it into the pits, and that also means that he is going to be done as well. So from 27, I'm actually now seeing here with my timing up and running. 26 starters. Unfortunately, now down to just 16. And a few of them sporting damage. It means they will not be competitive for the rest of the race too, as we'll have 7 laps to go at the line.
So with 2 races of V8's action today, safety car tally now stands at 3 apiece for both races tonight. Obviously not the kind of stat that is really worth celebrating, but still interesting to think about. I think it really speaks to just the sheer amount of incidents that we've seen, and often those incidents have been sparked by something very small happening. You know, a tiny little slide for bike off coming out of Murray's resulted in an overcorrection and 3 or more cars being taken out of the running, just as an example.
I mean, yeah, it's not. I mean, yeah, 3 safety cars. We had 10 laps of running before the safety car was called, so it's definitely not a good look. And but yeah, it is a fair point to say that was a 1-car incident that quickly became a 3-car incident, and then it became a 5-car incident eventually too. So that quickly snowballed out of control and not in a good way. Alas, though, the field now stacked up behind the race leader in James Anderson once more, as we'll attempt our 3rd restart of this V8's race. We'll see here when Anderson chooses to go. Either way, every time he's gone, De Graaf has followed, and they've been able to drop Aaron Gilbert, there in 3rd place. Let's see, can Gilbert finally get a read on when these 2 Simblacks cars ahead will take off on one of these restarts?
Yeah, so the first restart, it happened pretty much on the exit of the chase. Second restart, it happened at the apex of Murray's. Now, are they going to change it up again? Let's see. With Anderson and De Graaf having coordinated the start nicely the last 2 times. I'll tell you what, this has given a bit of a second chance to Dion De Graaf, because remember, he had made his mistake before and had fallen back into the clutches of Gilbert, but now he coordinates the start with his teammate again, and they already have a reasonable gap over Gilbert as they come into Murray's corner to officially take the green flag. Lap 12 begins here at Mount Panorama. We should have 7 to go at the line.
Well, we do have 7 to go at the line in terms of the race lap count, but critically there, we'll throw it up on screen for you. We also only have just over 16 minutes. Now, that's enough time, of course, to get this race done if it stays green, but with the safety car rate, could easily upset things there a little bit, as Henry King will get on past Steven Varga, and then Varga will look back up the inside for the cutting and refuses to give up any spots here. And then it's 3 wide with Hayward trying to find a place. Squeeze, contact, Hayward finds the wall on the left side.
Oh, goodness, yeah, 3 wide at Mount Panorama is a bad idea most of the time, but especially out of the cutting. And I mean, Hayward, I think you can't blame him for doing that. I mean, both of the cars ahead of him locked up and went wide, so might as well try, but unfortunately, he's got a destroyed front left for his troubles, and I think once again, that's going to be another car out of this race. It has been chaos here at the mountain in the V8 support category. Scott Stevens, meanwhile, we saw him get spun around earlier. He's made his way back up to 10th, and Craig Mason facing issues through the S's too.
As I'm watching this case of everyone's dropping like flies or something or other here, unfortunately, which is not what you want to be seeing, that's for sure.
Did he hit the inside wall?
Not sure from that particular replay snippet there, just runs it down through the escape road. Was it Craig Mason?
Yes, Craig Mason.
Complete blank on the driver of the 47, despite the fact that Craig's, just been driving that that number all year long. So solid brain fade there. Stevens and Stevens going at it. It will be Scott who comes out ahead on the exit of turn 1. Dan there caught up trying to fight the spot, and now vulnerable to Jamie Davis, who we jump on board with the drag race up to Griffins. Although with Dan there on the inside, Reese, you'd expect he should be able to hang on to the spot, and indeed Jamie will back out and take single file running on the exit of turn 2.
It looks like Scott Stevens' restart has been fantastic. He's really been putting down some consistent times, and that's not the angle that you want to see a car at in the pits. Unfortunately, Matt Haywood, I think, not having the best of times there, with Mason now coming into the pits too. The battle is on here further up ahead, with Stephen Varga still trying to get past Henry King. I mean, King spent a lot of time behind Varga, and it took him a while to get that move done, because it seems like every time a move is put on Varga, he fights straight back.
Sure does. He's been relentless in that respect, at making and trying to hang on to every spot he can get. But it seems to me that the Jinx Shifters HRT-inspired Commodores here are trimmed out, because despite the fact that both of them had a pretty even run off of the elbow from what I could see there, that number 2 car pulled away from the 868. As further on back, it's now Scott Stevens trying to eye off Joe Mahoney, but no dice that time, despite being side by side into the chase. As we'll go to a replay here at the front of the field between Anderson and De Graaf. Let's have a look at this. He gets close, does he, Reese?
Is there a... Yeah, just close. And there was a big slide on the exit of the chase as well.
Oh no, trouble turn 1.
Oh no.
Scott Stevens around.
Every time we go to a replay, something happens, and Stevens has stopped the wrong way around over the exit curve of Hell Corner. Gets it righted and back going, but yeah, that looks like big damage. I think there was contact with another car involved in that somewhere, and yeah, there was. It was Stevens trying to make a pass on Joe Mahoney, but it wasn't Mahoney he made contact with. Stevens actually spun on his own coming into Hell Corner, and Daniel Stevens was right there to collect him as... Oh, goodness gracious me. This fight here with Henry King showing no signs of abating. He and Stephen Varga, they've been trading spots pretty much all race so far. They're probably the 2 most well-matched drivers on the circuit at the moment. Varga just a little bit offline through the S's. He's going to have to gear it up for a good exit from here.
Yep. He will have to, as we'll just check the leaders there for a sec, and then watch these 2 off of the elbow. Plenty of space given to the outside wall on that occasion by both cars, as winding up in speed. Varga is right there, and he's getting a bit of slipstream this time, but to come over the crest, it's not much. Although it's enough to have a proper chance here. He will swing out. He's going to commit deep under brakes, and King respects the attempt and allows it to be made successfully on this occasion there. Although he'll immediately counter by forcing a narrow run into Murray's from the 868 machine, although King not able to get it turned over and clips the grass for his troubles, and that really hurts the run off the final corner there.
So that might be the battle over for at least a few corners, unless Varga makes a mistake. It also brings Tim Nicol into the battle for the top 4 as well. This is a replay of what happened to Scott Stevens here. Tried to go for the move, but lost the rear. Daniel Stevens has absolutely nowhere to go. He'd already committed to the corner by that point. Just happened too quickly.
Yeah, it was unfortunate there for Stevens, making good forward progress. Was Scott, and just got himself a little crossed up there at turn number 1. As we check back in with your leaders, just under 4 laps to go in this race as they climb the mountain once again and pulled about 2 seconds from Dion de Graaf in second to Aaron Gilbert in third. So they shouldn't be under pressure, these two, I would think, despite Gilbert being under no pressure also of his own. Seems to me it looks like they've got the edge here in these cars at the mountain today. Although, got to still bring it home. It feels like today's a case of anything could happen, I guess. It might just...
Well, in any case, Tim Nicol seems that he's kept the consistency up here. I mean, he had that run up from 10th to 6th in race 1. He has remained in 6th the entire time in race 2. And now that King and Varga have sorted themselves out again, seems that little bit of side-by-side running has allowed Nicol to catch up as Varga goes slightly wide there at the apex of the chase. That allows King another small look up the inside, and again, just moving around in the mirrors a little bit, taking a little bit longer to get onto the entry line for Murray's, attempting to psych Steven Varga out. It is 3 laps to go, and only 8 minutes left on the timer. It looks like we're almost going to go time certain here in this race. But now, look at Henry King, falling under big pressure from Tim Nicol coming out of Hell Corner.
Under some pressure, yes, but not really feeling it just yet, I think, because once again, straight line in the Jinx Shifters Commodores is some of the best in the field, especially if they've got a bit of help as well, and also a little more a bit faster through turn 2 as well. Will stretch the margin back to Nicol behind as they then make their way through the cutting. All over the back bumper of Varga, but realistically, nothing that can be made of it until they get down to the elbow at the earliest. Conrod Straight, more likely as Varga, a little better it seemed, as they come over the grate there at Sullivan Park as well to consider in all of this. As down the S's and the dipper once more they'll go.
Out of Forest Elbow as well for the leaders. Anderson versus de Graaf. It seems to me like Dion doesn't have as much of an answer for Anderson's pace as he'd like, but they enjoy a huge gap over the rest of the field. Aaron Gilbert on his own in third. He is untroubled. Henry King, though, in a bit of a sandwich here, with Varga being the top slice of bread and Nicol being the bottom slice of bread. And let's see whether or not King is going to become a mixture of wheat and salt and yeast as he tries to get the best exit possible out of the chase. Defensive now from Varga. Slows down a little bit quicker than King does. They almost make contact at the apex of Murray's corner. It is time then for the penultimate lap for these two, and, well, make it these 3, because Tim Nicol is now having a look at Henry King. Will he be able to pick up the slipstream here, coming down to Griffin's Bend? It's all about the slipstream up this section of the circuit. And both of them got quite a bit of oversteer out of that first corner, so I think they're going to have to wait a little bit longer to get it done. Look at King, though. He's got a great run on Varga, who once again seems to slow down a little bit earlier for the corner.
And it just compresses them up behind the 868 as a result. Under there for King for half a moment thought, does he try? Gets a little wiggle though on the exit of the cutting, which will put him a bit further back and have Tim Nicol right on his gearbox as they climb the hill once more. Here, we'll do this one more time after this. That's got this chance here, this run of green flag laps that we've been looking for here in the V8s. And at this rate, these 3 not going to be able to catch Gilbert up front, obviously, who's running in clean air. And under no pressure from Gavin Cox, who's in a bit of a bubble of his own. So this is the fight to watch, it seems, because Anderson and de Graaf have been playing nose to tail, line astern, fairly calmly and collectively, and that's still the case there as we check in with our leaders as they come down to the chase for the penultimate time here, Reese. Henry King's got a huge run building on Varga. He's going to have to lunge it under brakes, but he's there.
Oh,
Can he
that's
commit
a
to
lot
it,
of
though?
curb. That is a lot of curb there at the chase, but look at the run he's got through the middle of the corner. He's still not able to get past Varga, sticking to the racing line. Oh, how did Henry King hold on to that?
So these cars are just compliant enough with that curb, unlike what we saw last time in the flat fours and the flat sixes, as they will see the white flag from Barney there at the stand. Now just one lap left in this event to finally wrap things up here for the racing action for today, along with the racing action for our SCOPS supports program. As King is going to have to go the long way around apparently at Griffins, and he's going to get a nose ahead, and in fact might he commit all the way.
Oh,
Almost gets clear, but Varga again sends it back under brakes, and King stuck in no man's land on the outside of the preferred line.
Here comes
And
Nickel.
now showing a nose for the outside of the cutting.
Oh, look at him. He has to back out coming into the cutting. They will have to stick in single file here across the top of the mountain. We've already seen how side-by-side works out many times over the years across this section of the track. What Nickel has to focus on is his exit from Forest Elbow. What King has to focus on is being close enough to Varga for a run in the slipstream down Conrod Straight. This is going to be huge here in the battle for 4th place in this V8 race at Mount Panorama. Final supports category race of the weekend before we get into the V8 SCOPS 1000. What a weekend we've got coming up. What a weekend we've had so far. Here is the entry to Forest Elbow. King slightly narrower on entry. Does he straighten it up in time for a good exit? He's a little bit further behind Varga than he'd likely want. Let's see if Nickel can keep it up here. Up the front, looks like Dion de Graaf and James Anderson are having a run at it. Anderson, defensive versus de Graaf into the chase. These guys having a race with each other as de Graaf catches the grass and big oversteer. Here we go then. Stephen Varga still ahead of Henry King. And it looks like that's the way things are going to go for 4th place. But up the front, James Anderson makes the Saturday sweep. He wins both V8 races at Mount Panorama. King still having a go at Stephen Varga for 4th place. And the cars are separated by barely anything at the line.
Oh, he tried round the outside, but he could not get it pulled up early enough to cut underneath the rear bumper of Varga. And so indeed, our top 6 will finish the lap as they started it, although de Graaf there giving James Anderson a proper run for the money there into the chase. Aaron Gilbert will have to settle for 3rd this afternoon. And as the rest of our drivers who are able to make it to the finish ends up being just 12, Reese, that survive on the lead lap here today, with Jamie Davis, the last one now across the line, meaning that we can head to our results. But, well, I wasn't expecting 3 safety cars, I have to say. But once we finally got things to calm down there after safety car number 3, ended up simmering a bit and then going for a solid boil there. Both for the top 2 and also that fight for 4th.
Yeah, that top 10 all covered by 25 seconds at the very end. Dan Stevens making it into the top 10 after being involved in a few smashes throughout the night. Over the page, Lindsay Hobbs and Jamie Davis are the last cars to finish out of a field of 28 starters. We only had 12 make it to the finish. Scott Stevens is our first retirement, 4 laps down. Haywood, Mason, Slater, Bykoff and King, all 8 laps from the finish. 9 laps off Peter Pavlovich and Shane Bowen. And then race came to a very early end for Adams, Parker, Vassell, Gray, Bruns and Miller. Liam Jacobs and Lachlan Horan did not take to the start for the second race. Unfortunately, we didn't see Jacobs there because he would have started 7th otherwise. So that is going to round off the support categories for this weekend. Brilliant performance from James Anderson, and we're going to be seeing more brilliant performances again very soon. Coming up, it is the top 15 shootout for the V8 SCOPS Bathurst 1000. Who's going to take pole? Stay with us and find out. You're watching SimSpeed TV. It is time for the top 15 shootout here in the 2023 V8 SCOPS Bathurst 1000. Reese Gardner here with Dan Yeaman in the comms box and Jay Kennedy handling production behind the scenes. Dan, everyone gets one single lap in this session to set their final time for the grid. The pressure is on, and we'll be able to view every lap in its entirety. It's going to be a fantastic session.
It is one of the joys, benefits of the shootout, of course, and that's that part there. First of all, that we can give these cars and these drivers one full lap of focus. There's also the fact that this is a practice server, not a qualifying server. And so the drivers will have the liberty to use all of the track and get up against the walls. So if drivers do brush the wall, that won't invalidate their time. If they go over the curb at the top of McPhillamy Park, their lap is not over. If they get a little aggressive, say, setting up for or running a little wide at turn one, the lap's not over. And in many respects, that's what we want to see. We want to see these drivers here give it absolutely everything here for these shootout laps.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at the history of this area, because it's not just Mount Panorama that has a motor racing history here in the Bathurst area. It actually dates from the early 20th century. 1906, they raced motorcycles at the Peel Circuit between Kelso and Limekilns. Then in 1914, they moved over to the Yetholm Circuit. This was the track that hosted the first Australian motorcycle Grand Prix. Fantastic stuff there. Then, in 1926, they decided, let's take the Targa Florio and put it in Australia. The Sunny Corner Circuit, over 100 k's in length. Then in the 1930s, they moved to the Vale Circuit, which was definitely a very dangerous circuit with plenty of rises and dips along its straights and sharp corners. Then in 1938, the Mount Panorama Circuit opened. That's the original layout. In 1984, the current pit entry and exit were introduced. Then, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, in 1987, the Chase was introduced. That is the totality of the history of motorsport in the Bathurst area. Quite a few tracks and plenty of racing on 2 and 4 wheels. Let's see if we can add to some of that history tonight, Dan.
I mean, in a sense, we will be those classic road circuits, as it were. Like that Mount Horrible configuration, 100 kilometers for a single lap.
Yeah.
Is just the number boggles the mind. The Nordschleife, and you add the Grand Prix circuit on, is 25, and that's long by modern standards. And the fact that, you have to go back. You go back in time, and we find casually setting up racetracks with triple-digit lap lengths back in the day. Is just it sort of blows. I mean, the closest thing we have is, I guess, a modern rendition of the Targa Florio or the Isle of Man TT circuit. And they are very few and far between memories of a time now long past.
Yeah, the Isle of Man TT circuit is really the only holdover from that period of racing. But if you are in the Bathurst area, the big benefit is you can actually drive on the roads that made up all of those old circuits, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. It'd be interesting to try the Sunny Corner Loop going all the way up to Palmer's Oakey and then finishing again in Kelso, right next to the town of Bathurst. We're waiting now for the call for the first couple of cars to prepare here for the top 15 shootout at Mount Panorama. And of course, it is going to be going in reverse top 15 order, which means that I believe it is the Piff Puff Racing car that should be out first, unless I'm mistaken. It's going to be the 951.
Yeah, sure. McNamara setting the qualifying time for the 951, which was good enough for the provisional P15 there. So once Sean's actually in the car, he should be on the centre first. We do have a couple of cars here in the pit lane. Ian Ford being there. You can see behind the wheel of the 115 for Evolution Racing Team, and Damien Johnson's got the 033 for Synergy Sim Racing sitting in the box. But yeah, need to wait on the 951, and then Shootout can commence.
Right then, up on the jacks there for Henry King. Sorry, for Ian Ford, my apologies. Is looking like he's getting a few fresh sets of rubber on the car, as just behind them, Sean McNamara appears out of the ether and takes to the wheel of the 95 SimSport 951. They just managed to scrape into the top 15, these drivers. Now, it'll be interesting to see, with him being the first car out on track, whether or not he can set a reasonable benchmark for everyone else to drive to. 31-degree track temperature out there at the moment, and air temperature is 26 degrees Celsius. Looks like easterly winds at about 20 k's an hour. That should be a slight tailwind, I believe, down the start-finish straight if the wind is coming from the east.
Well, I can do you slightly better. Apparently the exact direction is just swinging a little bit on me now, but it's actually going to be quite a decent tailwind up mountain straight.
Okay.
Slightly cross from the outside of Hell Corner to the outside of Griffins on its current exact angle. But for all intents and purposes, it means that you're going to be given a good push in the approach to Griffins, and then also be sort of pushed a little bit once you're coming from Silman Park across to McPhillamy. Be a bit of a tail, and also a tail breeze sort of effectively, well, actually it's more of a crosswind by the time you hit McPhillamy proper, so that's to be considered. And also crucially, it'll be a headwind pretty much for all intents and purposes along Conrod Strait. So okay, so be expecting to see how cars go in terms of their trim here, with no tow, of course, being one car, one lap, and the track. That'll be important to see how they go for top speed at the end of that there straight away.
Yep. Sean McNamara, of course, not going 100% down the straight. He's just making sure that his brakes are calibrated, that he's got the brakes and tyres up to a reasonable temperature by the time he starts his lap. Because, I mean, if you come onto a hot lap with super cold brakes, you're not going to have a fun time on the way down to Griffins, or even into turn one for that matter. So this is it. The stretch from the Chase to Murray's. This is where you have to psych yourself up. You've got to focus on the entire lap ahead of you. You can't just take it one corner at a time at Bathurst. They come thick and fast right in the middle of the lap. Across the line, and the top 15 shootout is go, with Sean McNamara on his way down to turn one. Looks like a nice clean entry. Just manages to hook up the apex. It's fine if you drift a tiny bit wide at Hell Corner. As long as you hook up the exit, you'll be able to take advantage of the run down Mountain Straight and up to Griffins.
So far, all right. Maybe a little conservative with the run that he got through Hell Corner, but for the time being, sets up nicely for Griffins. Gets it in towards the apex, but the car understeering a bit on him here, Reese, it seems. Now, through Griffins, that's not so bad, I guess, but it does sort of suggest here that despite the fact this car obviously, well, these cars prefer their out laps, the tyres are best here when they get going. A little wiggle off the cutting too from the rear end as he tries to put the power down. 46.5 at the first sector margin here as he comes out of the cutting and begins his run across the top. Dab of the brakes through the compression at the grate to try and get that car rotating to the left, and then a little dab again to enter across to McPhillamy and begin the descent down the mountain from here.
All right, here we go then. The run down into the S's. McNamara very aggressive over the curbs here, and into the dipper he goes. Just a little bit of a squirm from the rear end as he gets the car slightly airborne. Try and go as flat out as he can here. Tiny slide on the way down into Forest Elbow. Oh, he's having a big adventure out there going down the mountain, but he gets out of Forest Elbow cleanly. And a 29.58 for the second sector. Now, he's just got to nail the braking zone for the chase.
Yeah, as we'll watch the speed build here and look to see what this straight line number is going to be 290 just as he sets it up to hit the anchors here and turn left through the apex of the chase. So that's what we should perhaps see from the other cars. A little wiggle as he gets it back to the right there to exit and set up for Murray's, using the curb and all of the road available to him here. And then a little wiggle on the way into Murray's as well. Exit curb in use and across the line for McNamara. Our first time in the shootout is going to be a 2:03.682. So that is the marker that we are working with for this one here. Let's see if that's enough to improve McNamara from what was going to be P15 on the grid for tomorrow's race. Next up, Piff Puff Racing and Jason Bentz back aboard the 017 here.
Okay, Jason Bentz will be driving with Brian Borg in tomorrow's Bathurst 1000, a team up that has gone back quite a few years. This time it is Bentsy at the wheel of car 017. Nice and gentle on the way down to Forest Elbow on the outlap here. He's just trying to keep those tyres cool because, you know, we talk about it every single V8 SCOPS round. These tyres don't tend to last very long in terms of pace. As they heat up, as they wear down, the pace drops off. So if you've only got a one-lap shootout session, it's in your best interest to go as slow as possible within reason. Let's see what Bentz can do here on this lap. It was the dying moments of the qualifying session where he was able to put that mega lap in to get himself into the top 15. Now he just needs to consolidate that position and hope that he has an even better lap this time around.
Yep. Well, you made it this far. Let's see if you can do a little better, or potentially just put yourself in a spot to capitalize on something not quite working out for the others here in the session. Tidy run to start the lap here as he'll set off towards Hell Corner here. Open up the corner there nicely. Turns in, gets a little better, I think, than McNamara in terms of apex, but at the same time, wasn't holding it out on the white line quite as aggressively on the approach to turn one. So we'll try and keep in mind those opening sector numbers. In fact, saying that, should actually go and look and see if I can get them up for myself.
The mini sectors, well, the mini sector first one was a little bit faster by about half a tenth than Sean McNamara. So already sector one is looking good here for Jason Bentz, as there was a little bit of a wiggle on the way into the cutting there. This is the actual first sector line. It will tell the full story. That's a 46.4 there for Jason Bentz. Already just a little bit ahead of Sean McNamara.
That's what he's going to want to see. So watch him across the top here. Looks neat and tidy. Maybe a little more road available to use on the left to open up Skyline, but again, doesn't really need to use all the road per se. It's looking pretty good so far for the 017. He now makes the descent down towards the elbow. Looks a little bit more composed here. A little bit more of a narrow entry, though. There's a tiny bit of a lock on the left front corner. And he gets that car pulled up for the run down Conrod Straight, though. We'll wait to see how the sector markers look here. Although just got the one left here to finish off his lap.
All right, so 25.397 was the fifth mini sector time for Sean McNamara, and Jason Bentz has beaten it, but only by half a tenth. This is going to be close. Can he nail the braking zone for the chase? Nice, clean run out. Tiny bit of oversteer on the exit, but the curb gathers it up for him. And now one more turn to go on the brakes. And they look like they go so deep into this corner. It's a little bit faster than it looks. Across the line for Jason Bentz, it will be a 2:03.664. Oh, 647, my apologies. Only half a tenth of a second in it.
Yeah, close, but it's all he needs to do to hang on to his spot ahead of McNamara in the session so far. And so, our first two cars stay as they were. So, going to be next now for Ian Ford. Also, we'll see here, first of our Evolution Racing Team entries do here in the session. We will have three ERT cars in this shootout here this evening to see where they start this race off. And test being, will Ian Ford be able to keep the trend of see if this becomes a trend, I should say, because I guess two cars staying in the order that they came into the shootout is one thing, but got to actually now see if we put this to the test.
Yeah, and you probably heard there that the car went very quiet as he was going through the dip. Ian Ford was on the clutch pedal coming down Conrod Straight. Looks like he might have slightly underfueled the car, and he's trying to preserve as much fuel as he can for the hot lap. You want to make the car as light as you possibly can. As long as you have about a litre left at the line at the end of your hot lap, then that's totally fine. At least I'm presuming. So, out of the final corner, Ian Ford comes. And away he goes on his hot lap here. Ford has done thousands of laps around Mount Panorama at this point. He knows this place like the back of his hand, and he's a very quick driver on his day. Looked like a pretty good run out of Hell Corner, nice and clean. And as long as you have an uneventful first turn at this track, the rest of the lap might be able to go your way.
Watch here now up towards turn 2. That looks pretty solid there from the 115, and now making the approach to the cutting. Not quite on the white line there at the apex, but may have been able to hang on to a little bit more momentum as a result. So trade-offs at 46.6. I'm going to have to say there, Reese, that's probably right on the sector mark times that we've seen here as, oh, pardon me, 46.478, the best sector one we've had so far. So in fact, no, that's almost 2/10 down on what Jason Bentz was able to achieve here. So this is going to be important to see if 40 can hang on to his provisional P13, because he's now got some work to do here in the back half of the lap.
Yeah, he's going to have a magic second and third sectors here. It actually looks like the run through the S's has been good. He almost got into the wall there on the way into Forest Elbow. That's another nice clean exit. 29.783 in Sector 2. That is another 2/10 lost. So I think Ford will have to hope that he has a mega car in a straight line. Let's see how the chase goes for him. Flat out on the way in, get on the brakes just before the 150 marker. And then that is a lot of curb usage at the chase. The car almost got unsettled there, but looks like Ian Ford gathered it back up. So this has been a clean lap, if not the fastest we've seen for Ian Ford. Just one more turn to go, and we will see what that's worked out to for him. 2:04.0 there, 4/10 off. Unfortunately, not quite the lap that Ian Ford would have been hoping for, but it's enough to get him on the board.
Yep, and it'll have to do here. It does mean possibly looking at P15 for the 115 to start the race tomorrow, but still, plenty of other cars to worry about here. Speaking of cars, up next, Damien Johnston, the Synergy Sim Racing and WPC entry here, 033 on the car, although in saying that, number 143 in the team name. Actually, going to just double check that one for my own sakes, and yeah, it is meant to be 143 if I'm looking at things correctly in the back end here and there, so that will be one to perhaps be noted, but alas, that's not my my responsibility or job to do so per se. And importantly, focus on the lap here that Johnson will be about to put together.
Yes, Damien Johnstone in car 033, one of the cars you're certainly not going to miss around Mount Panorama. That bright yellow livery taking part in the Enduros here. And Synergy Sim Racing has gone from strength to strength in the last couple of years. Unfortunately, looks like he might just have the wrong number on that car. It's technically supposed to be the 143 that he's driving with, I believe, Jordan Ross. So let's see how he goes, though, on this lap. Whether or not race control will talk to him about that. A little bit of a wiggle on the way into Hell Corner to start off the lap.
Yeah, that little wiggle there, not too ideal, but at the same time, he was able to gather it up, and it perhaps didn't hurt him all too much. Although, of course, the first sector time, once he exits the cutting, will be important, as it's wide at turn 2 as well. So
Slide on exit 2.
making me think here, or suddenly the rear got away at turn 1, the front end not compliant perhaps through turn 2 there. Makes the climb out of the cutting. We'll see here exactly what the damage is. Best sector 1 is a 46.4.
3 tenths off.
46.7. So yeah, that's going to be quite the climb back, or is this going to be a time more around what Ian Ford ended up setting here for Damien Johnson?
Well, down the S's then. Try to get it slowed up for the Dipper. Eases off the brakes, and then back on a little bit for the Dipper itself. And this is looking like a clean run through the most difficult section of the lap. Can he pull it up for the elbow in time? He certainly can, and just manages to avoid the wall on the exit 2. 29.9 in Sector 2, though that certainly not going to be a time that the Synergy boys were expecting. However, he can still gain some of it back on the run down Conrod Straight. Clean run into the chase. Here we go then. Easy does it. Kisses the curb, and that Synergy car looks a little bit more stable over the initial curb than 40's lap did. But yeah, once again, it feels like there might have been a little bit more to offer here from Damien Johnstone. Out of the final corner he comes, and that is going to be a 2:04.08. And that is going to be good enough for 4th. Of course, slowest time so far. But however, he did set the best final sector so far, 47.45.
So it gives you a good indication there of where the strengths of the Synergy Sim Racing car is going to be. It looks like. Then again, in saying that, there is more to that final sector, as we do have, of course, the braking and cornering is required at the Chase and Murray's too. As to whether the track temperature is increasing, the answer on that one would actually be no. It's not quite stepped, or it has stepped a degree. Yeah, but for all intents and purposes, I'm going to say that's pretty steady there. 26 degrees Celsius air temperature and 30 degrees Celsius on the tarmac itself. That easterly wind still giving drivers a bit of a push up Mountain Straight, and potentially a bit of a push from Sulman to McPhillamy Parks across the top.
So now it falls to Robbie Gibbs to see if Evolution Racing Team can flick themselves up the field a little more in this top 15 shootout. Robbie Gibbs, of course, formerly a part of your team, Dan, Drop Bear Motorsports, but making the move to Evolution Racing Team earlier in the year, and has certainly gone to some great strengths in 2023. Part of one of the veteran top teams of Australian sim racing competition. Power down, and the lap begins for Robbie. It all comes down to how Hell Corner goes. Actually, it looks like the car is super stable through there. It carried so much speed.
That was probably the best looking run through Hell Corner I've seen. About 5 cars that have gone out so far. Was able to hold it out there on the white line on corner entry and get it to the white line at the apex to boot, and use the curb and a little bit of asphalt runoff on the way out as well, and gets it down to the apex where it looks pretty nicely there at turn 2 as well. So let's see here if this guy gets in nicely to the apex of the second now. It's going to be 6.8. That is definitely our best opening sector.
Yeah, that is a magnificent first sector there from Robbie Gibbs. That ERT looks super stable in the rear. Is it going to help him through this section of the lap? Working the fronts pretty hard. He almost catches the wall there. I don't know if that resulted in a 0x contact. He is hoping that it didn't, because Dan's at the moment.
It's a good thing we don't really worry about 0x. As long as the car doesn't end up damaged as a result. Matching the best sector 2 across the top, which was from Jason Bentz at 29.550. So let's see here now as we pull up towards the end of the chase. what this is going to be like. Let's see here. Is this car compromised in a straight line for speed? I'd say maybe a kilometre down, maybe, but it's close. 290, 291 as he hit the brakes there for the chase itself. And now just one corner left to go here for Robbie Reese. If he can get this pulled up nicely on Murray's on the white line on entry. Does actually take curb there on the apex too. Hopefully hasn't hurt the run outs. It has not.
3/10. That is going to be the gap for now. 2:03.305 is the new fastest lap in the session. Beautiful job from Robbie Gibbs. That car looked supreme.
It did indeed. All right, so now 3/10 up on everything else we've seen so far. Means that can Geordie Cini do something similar and also put a time, well, slightly better than what Robbie Gibbs did there for that one? Or will he potentially slide into that gap there that now exists between Gibbs and Jason Bence's time earlier in this session? First of our Altus cars in this session. In fact, one of two, as our other Altus car is the Altus Esports 201. But Geordie Cini here for Altus Australia will be the first one up here from the stable.
Yeah, Geordie Cini has been competing in SCOPS for quite a few years now. Of course, one of the drivers who I believe he was part of Synergy at some point, and also was a member of Pursuit Sim Racing for some time as well before they came under the Altus fold and rebranded as Altus Australia. Cini is a quick driver. There's certainly a lot of potential in this lap, and they have a lot of support from Altus Esports here, helping their setup game. Let's see if it works out for them on this lap. Cini goes into Hell Corner and grabs the curb nicely on the apex. Looked a little bit squirrely on the exit. That might have harmed his run just a tiny bit up Mountain Straight.
Yep, will be one to watch here. Now, important to watch this now, I should say. Let's get this lap going. Looks all right through turn 2 from what I'm seeing. Got a tiny bit of the curb on the apex as he got to the end of the corner there and was able to then let the car flow out to the exit curb, I should say. And then a little wiggle though there on the exit of the cutting. Let's see here as we're coming up to this first sector marker. 46.3, and no, it's 46.7, and then a slide there as he comes past Reed Park to start the run across the top. Reese, this is somewhere more around the lines of Ian Ford's opening sector here so far on this lap.
Yeah, absolutely. Geordie Cini has plenty of activities outside of sim racing, and it's looking to me like he's still using that experience to great effect. 29.5 at 6.7. That's a pretty quick Sector 2, but I don't know if it's enough to overcome the deficit from Sector 1.
No, it's close. It's looking like, based on our numbers, yeah, on pace with McNamara in the second sector, but still down on, yeah, everyone but, in fact, just actually double checking this here. Actually, pardon me, unfortunately, our slowest first sector so far on this one here. So this is going to have to be a serious comeback at the end of the lap for Geordie Cini, or somewhere around the times of Ian Ford or Damien Johnson that we're probably looking at here for the 111. Murray's corner, he brings it in, gets a tiny bit of the apex curb, a bit like Robbie Gibbs, and we'll bring it to the line, and it'll be a 2:04.046 is what it shows up there, and he'll actually split the difference between Ford and Johnson. P5 at this stage with 6 cars on the board now.
Yep, it's 200ths from Ian Ford to Geordie Cini, and another 200ths back from Cini to Johnston. Here's the next runner, number 79, with Rehan Leonage at the wheel, the youngest driver in the V8 SCOPS field, and one of the youngest sim racers in Australia at the moment, also active in karting in the real world. He has certainly been a spectacular driver to watch on one-lap pace. He ended up winning the opening race of the season at Montreal this year. Let's see what kind of lap he's got in store in this Melbourne Hydrographics Depot Holden Commodore.
Yeah, it was a great back and forth to start the season off between him and Andrew Gilliam. And still at the pointy end of the standings. Just that now there's been a couple more drivers able to make their way towards the front of the charts as well that he has to continue contending with. And that, though, is going to not be on his mind because he's got this one lap that he needs to sort out and begins the run to Hell Corner. Looks like it's pretty decent there through the turn. You can see there on board a little bit of steering lock needed to get the car to point exactly where he wants to go there. And we'll see how that's reflected by the time we get up to the cutting. But first up, of course, is Griffin's.
Yep, here we go then. Hard on the brakes, coming up the hill. Keep it inside. You've got to make use of the camber on the very inside edge of that corner. This track is a public road most of the year. There's a natural crown in the tarmac as you make your way up this hill. That looked like a lovely smooth exit. Let's see what the first sector line is going to bring for Rayan Leonage. 46.478. That matches the first sector time from Jason Bentz. So at the moment, looking good enough for provisional P2 right now, but it's all about this run down the hill.
Yeah, most of our cars, at least the fast ones, have been 29.5s here in this second sector. Let's see here what Leonage can do for us as it comes up as a 29.7. So unfortunately lost about a tenth or so. Actually nearly 2/10 across the top. So this is putting him somewhere in between Brian Ball, which is, would be around the Piff, about 2/10 off the Piff Puff car. So and also therefore behind the 9.5 car. But looking at maybe P4 at this stage, as top speed here going to be 293 into the chase, which I didn't quite track Geordie Sinny's speed, unfortunately, but that's faster than the cars that came before him for sheer top speed, it seems. So maybe a little something there that he can work with as he brings it down into Murray's. Nice and steady. Doesn't use the apex curb like Gibbs or Sinny before him here. Clean run out and a 203.555. That final sector, a 47.3 Reese. That's done him good enough to get to second and being told, and can confirm it for you, best sector or final sector so far.
Yeah, great lap there from Rayan Leonage, solidly putting it into provisional P2 and not too far off the time set by Ian Ford. But there is another Evolution Racing Team car out there hunting down that provisional pole time. It's the number 12 with Matthew Bowler at the wheel. This is going to be an interesting one. We know how good Matthew Bowler is as a driver in other categories. He's not as much of a fan of driving these cars, which, all of that considered, his pace has really been something to talk about. I certainly hope that we get a spectacular lap from him. Be ideal if it was fast as well.
Yes, well, that's what we get to now wait and see about here, as he's going to take it nice and easy down in Conrod and just pick up the pace a fraction as we come over the crest. So we're looking here at the driver who brought it in basically smack bang in the middle of our provisional qualifying times, and that looks like we've had a degree, actually about half a degree knocked off the track temperature. Although, just as we say that, that looks like a fair bit of cloud cover moving in right here as Bowler gets ready to go for his lap. Will this be a micro advantage that goes his way, perhaps? Well, we'll find out in about 2 minutes' time as here goes the start of the lap, and on the flashes as well as he gets round the final turn.
Matthew Bowler begins his lap coming into the first turn here, and looked like the car was fighting him a tiny bit on the way out of Hell Corner, but he would have appreciated that extra rotation. Let's see then what the braking zone is like coming into Griffin's. This is probably one of the most critical braking zones of the lap. It will define your run up the hill towards the cutting. And he had to drag the brakes a little bit in there, and the car's looking a tiny bit unstable through the mid-corner as well.
It didn't want to turn in there. It just hung itself outside the white line rather than the other cars we've seen before that get onto the white line at Griffin's. It behaves a bit more, a bit better there, I should say, at the cutting itself, and a 46.3 though for the opening sector. That is still a quick time. In fact, from the numbers we've got, only
Second
bested
fastest.
by Robbie Gibbs, his teammate.
Yeah, the ERT cars are looking fast here, but also pretty loose there coming up through Reed and Sulman Park. McPhillamy looking a tiny bit more stable. Use the engine braking to its full effect, blipping the heck out of that thing coming down the hill. This is magnificent stuff. Let's see then, Matthew Bowler. Easy does it, coming down into Forest Elbow. Doesn't look like any complaints or chirps from the car there. He just avoids getting into the wall in the exit. I think that was the most ragged to the edge line I've seen out of the Elbow so far. 29.53 for Sector 2. This is going to be a fast lap.
That is our best second sector across the top, despite the wiggles and the slides. Top speed into the chase is 291, so this will probably be on for a challenge of that provisional pole time, but sliding on the exit of the chase and almost putting it. What's the word there that I'm looking for? There's a turn of phrase, and I've completely forgotten it.
Well, I think we can definitely say that the curb helped him out there. Wow, that was a massive lap there from Bowler, and I tell you what, it all came down to the final sector there. That's a real shame. But if someone else can do a lap like that and nail the final sector, then we're likely going to see some awesome times go forward here. Next up is car 707, Tom Freer at the wheel of this one. Next of our Synergy Sim Racing cars to take to the track. Now, Freer was mighty quick in the qualifying session. He's always been a fast driver. He needs to use all of that experience and more to nail the perfect lap around Mount Panorama. Away he goes into Murray's Corner, and the lap begins.
All right, looking tidy here to get things underway. Let's see what turn one's got for us here. He's right up on the white line on the way in, and he gets it to the white line on the apex too, and using the curb well on exit to boot. So as far as entry, apex, and exit goes, that was almost as good as I think it's going to get there at Hell Corner. Went straight to the left, mind you, on Mountain Straight. Interesting to note that one there. And setting up now for the run to turn two, but again, a bit like Bowler's car, struggling to get it in, and then sliding a bit on the exit too. Rear end complaining as well as the front.
Wow. All right, so this is another ragged to the edge lap we're seeing here from Tom Freer. Cleanish exit out of the cutting. This is the story now. 46.53 for the first sector. 46.54 really, and I don't think it's going to get much faster than that because, wow, the rear end is dancing on that Mustang.
It still puts him in amongst the thick of it when it comes to Sector 1 times. Only Robbie Gibbs and Matt Bowler have gone meaningfully faster in the opening sector here as he brings it down through the S's, gets it composed for the time you get into the dipper. They're able to hold it to the wall at the bottom as you turn to the right there, and then as you now look to see the second time at 29.51. That is also on the money with most of our drivers there. So this could easily challenge for one of our spots towards the front of the order. The only exception really going to be that number 2 machine being about 2/10 clear perhaps as we come down towards the chase. Top speed 292 for Tom Freer. And let's get it pulled up nicely though. Leaves him just one corner left here, Reese. Let's see what Murray's looks like here for Freer.
So it looks like a oversteery pointy car is the way to go in this session, and he pulls it up nicely at the final corner. Across the line he comes, and it's a 203.421. He goes to P2 for Tom Freer. Awesome lap there.
Indeed. 47.3 in the final sector. Almost matching Rehan Leonage, and that there enables him to jump ahead of Matthew Bowler's time, and in fact basically make up the difference that Bowler had on him in Sector 1 as a result. So, times keep coming in. The sectors are still, for the most part, incredibly close. We're talking about a tenth or two at most is all we've seen, and basically Sector 2 in particular, we're talking hundredths for most of our drivers. And in fact, with the exception of only a couple of cars, which are now towards the back of the shootout times, everyone is doing 29.5s across the top of the mountain. So this is going to be interesting to watch. Let's see if Corey Shepherd in this Fishy Motorsports machine might be able to potentially break that trend.
All right, smooth entry, smooth exit. Corey Shepherd has gained a bit of a reputation as a one-lap wonder in this series since he started racing. And look at how hard he was pushing on the way into turn 1. He is using every millimeter of the racetrack right over the white line on the way into Hell Corner.
Let's see now, a bit like Tom Freer's immediately gone to the left for the run up Mountain Straight and setting up now for Griffins. Again, not quite what I'd say is ideal, but less complaints from the rear end on exit at the very least. So he brings it up towards the cutting and see, can he get it pulled up? Again, no, he's not quite able to cross over the white line there at the apex of 4, and a little wiggle as he turns back to the right with that compression at 5, but he's close to the ERT cars of Gibbs and Bowler for Sector 1. Slots in with our third best time there in the first third of the lap.
Yeah, and you notice he also short-shifted over the bump coming out of the cutting. So evidently, he's very confident on the throttle here. Try your best to keep the car straight here. That looked like a lot of speed carried into the dipper, but he pulls it up just in time. And that car is on the ragged edge right now. Fishy Motorsports once again pulling out all the stops here to try and get a good result here. Oh, that was close to the wall. I'm wondering if there was contact there, but that was a magnificent second sector, 29.3. That looks like the fastest we've seen so far.
It is faster than anyone by almost 2 full tenths. That might just make, well, this will certainly put Shepherd on for a chance at regional pole, but he's done to 290 into the chase. So this could be an interesting thing here in terms of we're seeing this is certainly a good car on one lap, but could be vulnerable when it comes to straight line speed. Down into Murray's, 1 corner left to go. Can he get it pulled up nicely? Looks like it's pretty good here. Has that straight line deficit potentially hurt? 2:03.264. It will not.
That is a great time from Corey Shepherd. New fastest lap of the session. Have a look at how close he was to the elbow. He just grazed the wall there. Oh, he'll be thanking his lucky stars that wasn't a 0x that invalidated that lap.
Well, it might as well have been. It probably was a 0x, but doesn't matter. And the joys of being able to set up the session so that we can ignore those 0x contacts and allow the drivers to have, or drivers be able to take the risk of going out to the wall and grazing it if they can keep the momentum up. 10 drivers down, Reese. Just 5 left to go. And the first one of this final 5 is going to be the Trans-Tasman Racing entry. Josh Anderson behind the wheel. Can he do better than what was P5 in qualifying here? Or with the way the shootout's been going and how tight it's been, or will he potentially be at risk of losing a spot to one of the guys who's already gone out on track?
All right, Aussie Racing Cars champion Joshua Anderson brings it across the line and begins his hot lap. Stable on the brakes on the way into Hell Corner. The car looks reasonably stable, but maybe not quite as responsive as what we've seen from the likes of Synergy Sim Racing and Evolution Racing Team. Looks like the Trans-Tasman team have gone for a car that's a tiny bit more stable on entry. At least that's my largely uninformed opinion. Let's see how he goes through the top of the mountain. That looked like a lovely clean line through Griffin's Bend, and he just catches the curb on the exit to settle it. Now into the cutting. What's the line like through here? He goes tight. He crosses over the white line, just grazes the wall on the inside. That looked like a pretty good Sector 1. How does the sector time go? 46.3.
That's our best Sector 1 by a couple of hundredths perhaps only, but a 10th clear of Shepherd's Sector 1. So make of that what you will, as we now watch Anderson already up to McPhillamy Park as he gets that car using the curbs, and he's brushing out to the wall there on Skyline, really making sure to open his corner entries here. Able to get it slowed up nicely at the bottom of the S's to make sure the Dipper has got that maximum turn in as well. And it looks like for Ando here, he is not afraid to push the limits. 29.3, second driver to do so there, and he also brushes the wall again on the apex of Forest Elbow, and he's a couple of hundredths clear of Shepherd in the second sector as well. Let's see what the straight line speed at the end of Conrod says here for this lap.
Yeah, that's once again fastest second sector. Looks like 29.333. Here we are then, the chase. It's all about how you take the exit of this one. And it looked beautifully clean there for Josh Anderson, over the hill, down into the braking zone. Just grazes the grass on the way into Murray's Corner, hooks up the apex though, and across the line he comes. It's going to be a 2:02.759. We have our first 2:02 of the session. Look at that third sector time.
He was at 2:93 in a straight line, matching the fastest cars we've seen into the chase so far here in the shootout. And it looked absolutely pixel perfect. Murray's fastest final sector by at least 0.2 of a second, as well as being our fastest first and second. Well, it's our fastest in every sector that you look at here, but in particular, sectors 1 and 3, where he made up the time to Shepherd in particular by quite some margin. While that angle's a bit zoomed out there, Ando using just about all the road where he could there on that lap, including the exit of turn 2, where he was definitely up and over the exit curb there. That's the first of his wall brushes, and then there were plenty more to come across the top.
Yeah, that was a spectacular looking lap there from Josh Anderson. Now it's up to Dylan Rudd to try and beat it. 9.5 Sim Sports, once again, going strength to strength in the last few years. And Dylan Rudd has been one of the drivers leading the charge recently. How's he going to go on the 93, driving with Griffin Gardner in tomorrow's race? Across the line he comes, and the lap begins. Hell corner looking clean. Apex and exit both looking stable. Well, that's a good start.
All right, now we'll watch here that Rudd actually opting to stay to the right for the most part until we hit the crest there and that Petters signage before he'll move it over for left entry for Griffins. And another car that doesn't quite look like it wanted to get all the way into the apex there at turn 2, but been quite a few cars now that have looked like that and still put out solid sector 1 times. Gets it in like Anderson and brushes the wall a tiny bit on the apex of the cutting. And the sector 1 number is even better than Anderson's, Reese. First car below the 46.3 bracket in sector 1.
Wow, that is quick there for Dylan Rudd. He just needs to nail this snaking sequence over the next few corners. Hard on the brakes. Make sure that you don't lock up or blow the engine if you rev it too high on the downshifts. Didn't look as aggressive through the dipper as some other cars I've seen, but sometimes that works out in your favor in terms of lap time. 29.4 for Sector 2. This is still looking like a pretty competitive lap. And he manages to keep it out of the wall.
Gonna be right on Josh Anderson's time at this stage. Gained almost a 10th in Sector 1, lost about half a 10th in Sector 2. So back and forth here. You wait to see what it looks like into the chase. 292 for a moment there as the car straightens up before braking. And this is going to be close. Right together here. This final couple of corners here. This is going to be the difference maker here. Ando's looked pretty much about perfect. Can Dylan Rudd do the same here? Looks so good so far. Can he keep it off the grass? He does. Gonna be close, but not quite enough.
2:02.931. Sector 3 time was just a 10th or so off. A bit closer to 2/10. Yeah, 10th and a half. Let's see how he went across the top here. Once again, another one of those drivers that likes to hang the tail out through that section of the circuit. He probably could have gone a couple more millimeters to the left there. Maybe that would have made the difference. We're never going to know.
Indeed. Well, 12 times on the board. 3 drivers are left now to set us a time here in this session. It will be Andrew Gilliam to pilot the Altus Esports 201 machine for this qualifying lap. He'll be sharing the car with Job Stewart during the race tomorrow, but Job's a little preoccupied either with getting some sleep or getting ready for his next race in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup qualifying series. That race is at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, so that's a long day for Job coming up. So I'd be thinking, that might be perhaps an early night's sleep if he's feeling ready for the racing action. And indeed, I'm being reminded it's the very first round of the latest edition of the qualifying series for PESC tomorrow morning. But now, Reese, it's time to watch Gilliam and this lap here around the mountain.
All right, Andrew Gilliam, another driver who over one lap is simply supreme. He's fighting for the championship lead with Rayan Leonage this year. He'll be wanting a good result in the Enduros. Maximum points, maximum advantage. But this is just one piece of the puzzle. Let's see if he nails it. Bit of a later turn into Griffin's Bend than I've seen from some other cars, but despite a little wiggle on the exit, still look pretty good. It seems like the response in that Altus car at the front end is looking nice. Again, though, he doesn't quite hook up the apex of the cutting. How does the first sector line look? 46.226. Well, forget I said anything. That is, again, another fastest first sector we've seen so far.
Indeed, makes sense now as we get to the top, and he gets the curb on the exit of the Great, and then is all the way out to the wall as a result as he prepares to set up for McPhillamy Park. So this is, and then getting loose down the S's is what it looks like on my end at least, but by the time we get down here through the dipper, it's under control once again. Second timing sector will be a 29.3, and that puts him pretty much on the money with Anderson's second sector. And thanks to that opening sector, this could be the time that puts him up in provisional P1. Still, of course, this final run down Conrod and the chase and Murray's corner left to sort this one out.
Fastest first sector so far as I can tell. Fastest second sector so far. Let's see if that pace continues here for the Altus Esports 201. Didn't quite hook up the curb at the chase, but sometimes that's a quick way through the corner. Maybe they're avoiding that curb on purpose. We'll have to wait and see. The story will end when he puts the power down out of Murray's. Can he beat a 202.759? He can. 202.68. That is a new fastest lap once more for Andrew Gilliam. The pressure continues to climb for the last few cars to take part in this session.
As there we go, looking at there. All of the curb use and the tiniest hint of the wall. I'd have to suggest that's about as perfect as it's going to get there out of the exit of the Great. But we still have ourselves 2 more drivers to check out. And the first of them, well, should be Brady Myers, but we've just lost him there for a second. Apology. So hopefully he won't drop out of the server, but there's a chance that might just be what's happening here. Oh, no, so we lost him there all the way from the exit, or the approach to the elbow, and he's returned to us here halfway down Conrod. Fingers crossed that's the only blip he's going to have in his connection here.
Yeah, here's hoping, because Brady Myers, I remember how excited I was when he put that provisional pole time in during the qualifying session. I mean, that is simply magnificent pace from the #1 car. And of course, Brady Myers is the reigning champion of V8SCOPS from last year. Some news from Altus in the chat. Apparently, Andrew Gilliam feels like he lost a lot on that lap and is expecting P3. So let's see if Brady Myers will make that prediction come true. Look at the temperature. Look at how it's dropping. That's one of the reasons why we're seeing such good times. Of course, the drivers are faster, but the track temp is also cooler. Let's see if it helps Myers out, as that was a nice clean run through the first turn.
It's only a degree, but that can certainly make plenty of difference. some respects too, as the approach to Griffin's nice and wide, and I think almost maybe a second touch of the brakes there for Myers, a little wide of the white line on the apex, but the exit looks good, not too scruffy there for the number one as he brings it up into the cutting. Can he get it turned in nicely? He can, and a bit like Anderson, gets the wall there on the apex too, able to really get it down here as we wait to see what the number is. 46.3, it's about a tenth and a half down on now what is the best time through Sector 1, which is in the hands of Andrew Gilliam. So let's now watch this across the top to see if the time is on track to at least be close for the rest of the lap.
Yep, 46.382 for the first sector. Looks like he's using all of the curb and then some here. The initial phases of the S's and through the dipper, it looks lovely and stable. How's the turn in for Forest Elbow? Barely any hint of oversteer from the car on the way into the corner, but a big bit of oversteer on the way out. Looks like the concrete wall just gathered him up. 29.35 for Sector 2. Again, this is going to be close.
Yeah, he's just got that tenth and a half in Sector 1. That's going to be a worry, I think. Well, Sector 2 is like maybe a couple of hundredths at best. Yeah, only 2 to 3 hundredths. It's that first sector that might be the issue. Top speed looks solid at 292 before he hits the brakes here into the chase here. So realistically, the only car that's been an outlier on straight line speed was the Fishy Motorsports car with Corey Shepherd behind the wheel. Just one corner left already now for Brady Myers. He get it pulled up. He's wide on the entry. Tiny bit of the apex curb as well. Where will this put the number one machine? 202.9, unfortunately. He will sit back in behind Josh Anderson, his teammate. Provisional P3 for the number one.
Wow, okay. So that is 2 and a bit tenths, it looks like, behind the time set by the Altus Esports 2:01. Just infinitesimal losses throughout that lap for Myers, though it certainly was a fantastic lap. So let's see then if the benchmark can be beaten by James Scott in car 94. This car has always looked incredibly quick. They were absolute mega pace during the Sandown 500 and an absolutely stonking lap time in the open qualifying session earlier today. You see that James Scott is very meticulous about his preparations for this lap. He isn't wanting to take anything more out of these tyres than he needs to before the lap starts.
Yeah, this will be quite the Sunday cruise by the looks of things down Conrod for the outlap. More so than anyone else, I think, from what we've seen so far in the session. And as you said, the times in qualifying Group 3 earlier, the back and forth between Brady and James was great to watch. Now that Brady is at best third place here on the grid, as far as we know, for tomorrow. And the chance is now open for James Scott to put the 94 back into pole position as well. He's the man to beat by what qualifying would suggest for a form guide. So let's see how James Scott will do here on this final shootout lap of the night. Turn 1 looks solid, gets to the white line on apex, uses the curb, and it's not scruffy on the exit either, so that is clean power down for the 94 for the run-up mountain straight.
Lovely clean run for James Scott. Now here are the times that matter. The first two sectors, the fastest was set by Andrew Gilliam, 46.226 for Sector 1, 29.317 for Sector 2. Keep that in mind. Trans-Tasman Racing 51 was the fastest car in the final sector, 47.1. Let's see what James Scott has in store for us here as he climbs up the hill, out of the cutting, up the very steep rise towards the first sector line. 46.226, he matches Gilliam to the 1,000th.
Doesn't get much better than that. Doesn't quite beat Gilliam, but, well, that's exactly the start he needs to the lap now as he brings it up and over McPhillamy Park. Apex, exit curbs used nicely, opens up the entry to Skyline solidly enough there by the looks of things, and then down into the S's, holding it nice and tight to open the entry to the dipper. This is definitely looking like a good one from Scott. 29.35 at the second marker. Actually, matches Brady Myers to the 1,000th. losing potentially 300 so to Gilliam there. So this is going to be ultra close between the 201 and the 94, it looks like, for who will be on the top step of the grid for the race tomorrow.
Here we go then. All we've got is the braking zones for the chase and Murray's Corner. And he uses all of the tarmac on the way into the entry to the chase, slowing right down on the anchors, just clips the curb here at the chase. Little bit of oversteer on the exit through that final right-hander of the lap. Now it's just one left-hander to go here at Murray's Corner. Can James Scott dethrone Andrew Gilliam from the top of the timesheets? Across the line he goes, and it's a 202.788 P3 for James Scott. Pole position will go to Altus Esports. Andrew Gilliam is the fastest man around Mount Panorama today.
And Josh Anderson put this 51 TTR machine to second. Is that there? Might just have cost him a couple or 800th or two. And with the way the times have fallen today, that is all it has taken to make a difference here this afternoon. And with that all said and done,
wow,
that should do us, Reese. Don't believe we've got any need to, just waiting to see a potential message from Henry King, but that's actually a question about, is that potentially 3 Bathurst 1000 poles for Andrew Gilliam in a row, potentially?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, don't quite remember my stats.
At the very least, back-to-back, because he was on pole last year.
Well, we'll try and get that information for you if we can. And indeed being told that we'll have that number searched for, but at the very least, Reese, here are the provisional, this is the shootout results. This should be what sets the grid for the top 15 for our V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 tomorrow.
Yeah, wow. Only 0.073 in it for the top 2 positions. Still blown away by that lap by Josh Anderson. That was some spectacular running there. And well done to James Scott for putting that car in provisional P3. That is just fantastic stuff as well, though. You know, it all comes down to that one little slide coming out of the chase, right? Brady Myers, it was a consistent lap from him, rounding out the top 5. And yeah, we can confirm that is the last 3 Bathurst 1000 poles in a row that go to Andrew Gilliam. Of course, spread across 2 different teams, but still, gotta say, that's a great record there for the driver of car 201.
No, 100%. I mean, in saying that, of course, shootout pole is certainly one thing. Converting that, of course, into a solid race result is a different question entirely there. Your final 5 cars in the shootout with Jason Bentz there in the 017 for Piff Puff Racing, Sean McNamara, the 951 for 95 Simsport, Ian Ford in the 115 for Evolution Racing Team, our Altus Australia car with Geordie Sinney there in the 111, and Damien Johnson for Synergy Sim Racing WPC will round out the front of the grid for tomorrow's race. But before we sign things off here, Reese, we will chat to the man who's put that 201 on pole, and welcome Andrew Gilliam in to the comms box and be able to talk us through this pole lap, 3rd year running here at the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000.
Yeah, Andrew, bring up the production feed and let's review this lap that looked very exciting from outboard. How was it on?
My God, that was one of the loosest laps I've ever done. I was actually, to be honest, if you talk to any of my teammates, I was a little bit gutted because I knew there was more on the lap. I'll let you know when the footage and other stuff, but I'm just so stoked. I can't believe we got 3 on the top. I'm just over the moon.
Yeah, as you should be. I mean, the lap here, like it's always big pressure at Mount Panorama. How'd the car feel through this section? It looked like the turn-in was all right for Griffin's Bend, but a few cars had a big moment there on the exit.
Yeah, it pushed wide, probably half a wheel width, and I got gassed up over the curb. Pinched inside front of the gear, and probably like, I don't know, 20 centimeters wide of the apex. Got this nice, missed the curb here, mirror, and then here, this is my first big moment. It bites up better than I expected, and I can follow that curve. Yeah. I had to get out of it to not hit the fence there, but that was a coming through here. The rest of the lap was actually pretty good. It hooked up over the curb through here, made the apex a bit different nicely. And then I was on the rear brake all the way through Forest Elbow here, but not in an out of control way. It tucked in really nicely. I thought, oh, I've got half a chance. And then, man, just trying to breathe through the nerves. I could feel my legs starting to shake, and I'm like, you know, the delta is so close to Ando. And then, yeah, I run way too deep into the chase here. My opti goes green before I hit the brakes, and I'm definitely on the rear brake here. Missed the apex a tiny bit, but I think I saved it just, an extra little bit of throttle control. And then I get a mega last corner. I couldn't have done this corner better, I don't think. Kiss the apex and gas it up.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that just the run into that corner, you only had to just do a smooth turn in like Jensen Button does usually. It's that the front end of that car looks absolutely supreme, Andy. And you might not have felt good about the lap at the time, but in the end, it's about what everyone else does, and no one was able to better that time.
Yeah, I guess everyone's under the same pressure. You know, the conditions were, like over a second slower than the qualifying we just had. So I think, the setup balance was a little bit different with the track conditions. And yeah, I think everyone just, had a crack. I don't think anyone probably would have been satisfied with their lap. Like, even watching Brady and James at the end there, like they had a couple big gas up moments.
Well, in any case, the only gas up that's going to matter is the one off the line tomorrow. So are you already thinking ahead to how you're going to execute the start of this 1000k race?
Yeah, I want to get into a nice rhythm and hopefully, control the pace at the front. I don't want to be racing too aggressively and taking too many risks initially. So yeah, I just want to get into a groove and see where the pace is, even if we have to let a couple cars through just to manage our own race and maybe even save a bit of fuel if we end up in that situation. But yeah, Bathurst is, everyone says it, you can't plan for it. So it could be a race with no safety cars or 15 safety cars. It's hard to say, but yeah, just hopefully get off the line, no incidents, and then settle into a rhythm.
Well, we certainly send you our congratulations for that lap, Andrew, and wish you the best of luck in the race tomorrow. Is there anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, thanks to the Altus Esports sponsors, VRS, Racetech, and make sure you check out our Altus Engineering Packs available on VRS. And thank you to the race control and broadcast team for always putting on such a good event.
Excellent stuff. Andrew Gilliam, your pole sitter for the Bathurst 1000 tomorrow. Coverage will begin from 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Dan. It's going to be fantastic. 11:30, my apologies. Getting a little bit ahead of myself there. But we've got a midday start in the East for Australia's great sim race. I'm looking forward to this one, as I do every year.
Yeah, this is going to be hopefully a good one to watch tomorrow. Get your mornings settled and get sorted, and then whilst the field is getting the grid order set, thanks to the particulars of team racing and grid building, walk through all of the starting positions for the race tomorrow and talk about the drivers and hope maybe what to expect, or see about those who might be out of position based on what we're expecting at the very least going into things. And then, as you say, at 12 p.m. high noon, we'll drop the green flag on this 161 lap classic here at the mountain.
Yeah, we hope you join us for that tomorrow here on SimSpeed TV. Thanks everybody for watching, and make sure to give us a like on the Facebooks, give us a subscribe on the YouTubes, and follow us on Kick as well if you're active on that platform. I'm Reese Gardner, Dan Yeaman with me in the comms box, and Jay Kennedy handling production behind the scenes here on SimSpeed TV. Who's going to come away with the great race win? We won't find out for another 24 hours. Let's see.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.